Hey everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy heavy homo to listen in or possibly stream in. I apologize in advance. My voice might go. I'm dealing with a very bad chest cough. If you folks tuned in to the last episode or the last live stream, which was last night, I was doing pretty good, and things change. So I'll do my best. That's all I can do. That's all one can do, is to do my best.
Well, I'm hoping that at least you're feeling better otherwise, because I know you've been dealing with that cold.
Yeah, this has knocked me for a loop, and I just wish I could get a handle on it, because it's been a week at this point.
Is no bueno. Is absolutely no bueno.
There's gonna be a lot of that.
Well, and a lot of it's almost the weekend.
But I will say, one nice byproduct of this has been, Steve, you were regimented on this. This was unexpected for me. Whole lot of Godzilla and sci-fi films from the 60s that we've been watching. So
oh my god. And the fact, so I just went into it going like, I'll do 25 days of Godzilla. I know there's plenty of Godzilla movies, at least, 25. There's 38, I think, total. But that's including the American ones. But yeah, I've been sticking to it pretty well. I am a little bit behind. I haven't watched today's yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was late in posting the All Monsters Attack, which, oh god.
La Bamba.
It was so painful to watch. It was a clip show.
It is so bad. It's so, and the funny thing is, it comes after a fairly good movie in Destroy All Monsters. So, it's painful. It's painful.
So I shouldn't rush out and find this, is what you're saying.
Whoa.
Yeah,
it's
like, if you're not a completist, just don't sully the memory of it's so bad. Oh my god.
So like this one I thought was kind of interesting, just because it, like, the story itself was pretty lame, but the theme song, because I thought like the movie itself can't be that terrible, and it kind of was, but then the theme song is horrendous. I mean, Godzilla has a theme song that's basically sung by a kid who screams off key.
It's a woman. It's not a child. It's a woman.
That makes it worse somehow.
It's the quote of the night. Honestly, it's not a child. It's a woman.
It's not a child. It's a woman. Basically, Caleb, if you could think Finnish death metal, but with a slightly off-key semi-polka xylophone beat in the background, singing in Japanese. And that's basically what this is.
Yeah. It's like that chick from OTEP has her like foot in a vice, and they're making her recite the names of the monsters on Monster Island.
Yes. Like, I mean, to be honest, I'm sure that's on a B-side somewhere. Like, it's got to be. Really
and
does.
Yet,
but I think
the American version, the American theme is pretty groovy. I posted that on your reply. You can listen to that. The US version is called Godzilla's Revenge, and the theme's really good.
Wow.
They should put together a soundtrack compilation of Godzilla theme songs. That'd be cool. I mean, not that, but
they have them.
Do they? Oh, nice, very cool.
They have them. They're out there. You can get them. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, some of the the monster themes themselves, like the orchestral themes, especially in the early movies, are really good.
Yeah,
like just that really, unique. There's a lot of because it was the same composer for a lot of the early ones. There's kind of like a John Williams sort of feel to it, where you can sense sort of like the similar.
It's also like filtered through a non-Western lens.
Yeah.
So it has like the themes that are used in Gojira and Godzilla Raids Again. Those are
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Those
They were the best ones. I mean, that's the thing. The first, so far for me, the first two movies have been just, I think, probably my favorites in that they don't have a lot of um, they kind of eschew a lot of the goofiness that
Yeah.
comes later.
See, I
A
like
lot of that.
Ibira a lot. I like that one a lot because
Ibira was fun.
because it's fun, but it's also like that's where they merge, you know?
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
the seriousness and the campiness of what comes later merges, and it's fun without being camp. And
I mean, there's some camp in it.
there's some camp in it, but not it's not like this like
Everything
monstrosity
is.
you just watched. Yeah. And it's such a like it also has such a like a venomous title, you know, all monsters attack. And what you get
And
is
really
that,
all it is just a clip show from
yeah,
mostly
it's
Son of
just
Godzilla
kids.
and Ibira.
And like Caleb, this is how bad it is. Godzilla's son talks in it.
Minya.
He talks in it to this annoying kid.
Not a woman.
Not a woman.
Not a woman. Actually, not a
Put
woman.
in device, yeah.
An 8-year-old boy.
Well, we should
with...
talk about a little bit about what this episode's about.
Yes. Okay.
So why don't we do that? The big news for this episode is we have a returning guest to the show. And if you remember a few years ago, we had John Horsley talking about his horror anthology, the Eynes Anthology. And he's here to talk about a Kickstarter for a very different project, which is the Jonly Nonly issues 1 through 5 and collected book Kickstarter. And we're gonna let John talk about that, let him do the elevator pitch, but it's wildly different from the Eynes, so really look forward to talking to him with that. We have a lot of news to get through. We'll try to do that before John joins us, we hope around 10 o'clock, and then we'll talk about some current comics that we're enjoying. So I guess the big bit of news is the box office failure of the Marvels, which, and again, if you joined us last night or you tuned in, what was the last episode, we had a review for the Marvels on the last episode. There's a lot of theories, a lot of conjecture about why this is apparently tanking at the box office. Steve, why don't you lead us into that discussion and give us some of the rationales that have been bandied about?
Well, I think part of the problem here is that over the past, I mean, maybe even 20 years, whether a movie is good or not is like good in the general, understanding of the public, is if it makes money. So, obviously for people who watch movies, who love movies, they're going to see movies. They're going to have films that they know are good, films that they know are not so great. And for them, however much money it makes at the box office is meaningless. It's just icing on the top if it does well, and kind of disappointing if it does poorly. But especially for superhero movies, if it's not hitting like the 700 million, the 1 billion mark after several months of being out in the theaters, it's considered a lesser run, Marvel or other superhero flick. If it doesn't hit those blockbuster numbers, and it's always the first week really where that sort of pace is set. Traditionally, by traditionally I mean the past 20 years, if it doesn't hit in that first weekend, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's considered a failure, a massive disappointment, regardless of how it's, how critically how it's doing or what the word of mouth is saying about it. It's like, oh, it didn't make anything, so therefore it's cut your losses. Just run far away from it. It's not worth it. It's not worth seeing. Just let it die. Is kind of the sentiment. And Disney is no stranger to that, especially this year. That kind of, rhetoric, that kind of conversation was happening around their last Pixar movie, Elemental, earlier this year, which had the same kind of disappointing first week in the box office. They're like, well, clearly it didn't make $150 million right out the gate, so therefore it's an absolute failure and a big bomb. And that bomb language continued for I think maybe 20 weeks. It felt like it was in the theater somewhere because it kept making money.
but
because people who saw it went and actually who enjoyed it would then tell others about it. Like, you can go see it. It's not a terrible bomb that's going to disappear.
But you have that example, but you also have movies like The Haunted Mansion. You have The Little Mermaid, which did underperform. You had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania that had a very respectable first week and then just trailed off unbelievably.
Well, I think to that point, I think that movie had the opposite effect here. Like that movie got a lot of hype. People went and saw it, realized it was not critically very good. There's a lot of things about it that went wrong. The story was very choppy, and the effects were terrible. Like I'll happily just say that. I think when it first came out, I was like, I'll treat it with kid gloves. And I've watched it again since then, and it's not great. And people, and that got out. It's like, you can just wait. But I mean, to that extent too, though, you're dealing with a lot of factors that play into this, right? It's not only you have the small scale as far as time goes, with the fact that we have had a writer's strike. There was a lot of stuff happening. There was not a lot of output for this. They did not invest a lot of money in word of mouth and getting it out there and doing promotional materials for it. There's still a very big subset of the viewership that are like, streaming is going to happen. I'm already paying $10 to $12 a month for this. I'll just wait. I don't need to go out and see this in the theater. You've got people who are never going to see this movie anyway. And you've got people who are going to be hit and miss, but there's a lot of theories behind it. I appreciate that people took a pause on being experts at global geopolitics and interracial relations for a week to let us know about their expertise in the cinematic world and the logistics of how money is made by billionaires. I appreciate that, but ultimately we don't know, right? And the average movie person doesn't know. And if you haven't seen the film, or you're not going to see the film, then you have no room to critique. What's the point, right? I mean, I think it boils down to, I liked the film. I think people should go see the film. I think people should wait to see the film. I'm not going to plant my flag on, Marvel's hill. That they don't need me to get them any more money. But it's a fun time, right? Like, I'm not going to break myself and, thrash myself on the tree of woe for them either, but it's a solid film that I think people should go see.
Yeah, it's a shame that opportunity for a film to shake off first week reaction just isn't there.
Yeah,
it just isn't there. And in the past, we had a situation with home video. Something people forget. It's considered one of the iconic movies of the late 90s now, but Office Space was a bomb.
Yeah.
And
I saw it in the theater.
And
I
now
it's in the movies, and there were two of us in there.
Yeah. And, home video played a big part in Zoolander as well. There was another film that, really was just a blip and connected with people enough to get a sequel. I don't know with streaming if we really have that that opportunity for films to get. I mean, I know with series, like Netflix with Billions. Is it Billions or is it Suits? I get the two mixed.
Suits.
It's Suits. Now that's like a hugely watched show where before it was, it did fine, but not the blockbuster numbers it's doing now. Eventually there will be that film where that happens, that it just busts out on streaming, that it didn't perform as well in the theaters. But with the advent of streaming, monetarily, it's not the same, that a film has a possibility of a second life.
I think that's, and the studios really only have themselves to blame for that. I mean, I'm sure the same kind of rhetoric was,
and kids films are a little different. Because there are examples like Coco did not have a fantastic first week, and then it was a steady for about 3 months. So kids films are a little different, and sometimes it's the dynamics of my kids can't go this week, but they can go next week. That,
or you have parents who are like, I don't want to go, and
issues.
with a packed house with my kids and try to wrangle them. I'll wait to like a quiet time of the week or
but
after a couple weeks.
I do think fatigue for the moviegoer that is not dedicated to hitting every particular chapter of the MCU. I do think that fatigue has somewhat set in a little bit, that there's only one DC film next year and there's only one MCU film next year. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that may be a situation where, the heart, makes something, grow fonder in absence.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. I mean, you kind of, if you have so much available to you, give people time to catch up. Not everybody has time to binge every series that comes out, jump in and see like the movie the weekend it comes out. And if that's what you're using for like a factor whether something's going to work or not, then you'll never be right.
Yeah.
Give people time to breathe and like come to it on their own and watch it on their own time. And because our habits have all changed. Our habits as like just people have changed. We're no longer, beholden to what time something comes on TV on when we can watch it. We can wait 6 weeks or even 8 weeks on the outside, and something's going to be available for us to watch at home. Which is very different from what it was on VHS. Even though the same language was used when VHS came out. Oh, if people can just watch this or rent this at home, why are they going to go to the movies to see it? They just need to wait 6 months, and they can see it, in the comfort of their own home for $3 or $2 rental fee. Obviously, that wasn't the case. People didn't just stop going to the movies because videotapes were available, or they didn't stop going to the movies when television started, being a thing.
It's also really interesting post-pandemic that there haven't been a lot of films that have been runaway successes, but the ones that have brought in insane money. Thinking
Barbie.
of
and Oppenheimer, Barbenheimer. I mean, that is the 1-2 punch that did way better.
Spider-Man: No Way Home. Top Gun: Maverick. These Super Mario Brothers. There's these numbers are really, really impressive, and would even be impressive pre-pandemic. It's just not filtering down to like 3 or 4 more films. It's almost as if there's like just a very short queue for the top, and then people will, like Caleb said, they'll have other options down the road. It's interesting what that dynamic is. I don't know if the pandemic itself is a factor, because it seems that escapism is an element of, apart from Oppenheimer, is an element of all the success of all those that I've mentioned. And this definitely feeds into escapism. So I don't know why this, apart from, of course, the, misogyny, why this didn't connect, whereas something like Guardians 3 did. But again, Guardians 3, it was very, it was very well advertised as the final chapter. And if you've already seen the 2, how I'll see the 3, and that's my night out.
Yeah.
It was
we had the actor strike, because you mentioned the writer's strike, Caleb, and like the actor strike also is a big thing, because how else are you going to get the regular people out there who aren't watching all the trailers as soon as hours after they pop up on YouTube or whatever. You do it through the morning talk shows, you do it through the late night talk shows, you do the stupid vanity asks 100 questions about your new movie kind of stuff that's on that's
and I think there are some films that some of them are kind of like, that's not a big factor, but I think with some of the middle range films, those definitely do benefit from that kind of exposure. The 2 recent examples I can think of, one's a comic book movie, one isn't, Blue Beetle and Grand Prix. I think both of those would have very much benefited from the cast being out, raising the word that the films are out.
Yeah, but there's also some other aspects of this too that folks aren't necessarily considering too, right? So when we think about you mentioned Guardians and James Gunn. James Gunn has kind of got this built-in, borderline cult following, right? From his movies and stuff, and people kind of know what to expect. And there was enough distance between Guardians 2 and Guardians 3 that there were other James Gunn's projects in there that people kind of flocked to. We didn't get that from
they didn't flock to Suicide Squad.
No, they didn't do that, but there was, like you said,
Well,
there was advertising.
But there's also factors because again,
Yeah.
that was like that was a surge.
Sure.
Let's
face it, Spider-Man No Way Home led to a surge.
The previous Suicide Squad also didn't perform well, right? So there's a built-in thing there. Like you said, there's superhero fatigue and Marvel fatigue, right? But even inside Marvel, you've got these little elements of things that people will definitely go see when they know about it, and that there's things that they won't see. But when you also talk about movies such as Oppenheimer, such as Barbie, I think you can throw back to Dune when it came out, the hype around the Dune that's about to come out. There's a novelty to all of those, right? And so, and this goes back a little bit to the conversation that you just mentioned with the misogyny and stuff that's wrapped around it. There's the whole, go woke, go broke or whatever. And Barbie made bank, right? Like, so obviously that's nonsensical, right? But there's a novelty to a lot of those movies that is kind of played out, at least in superhero films, or at least in the big superhero films from Marvel, because they're very formulaic. And quite frankly, after 33 films, there's like 10 storylines out of all of those, right? Yeah. And a lot of it gets recycled. So there's a lot of it that's not novel. It's not new. They've seen it before. We've been conditioned. We know what it is. Why not wait? The other side of that too is, I don't know about you guys, but the movies that I go see, my habits have changed, right? Now, I love film, right? The cinema, right? Like, I love that. But I've got an 80-inch TV downstairs and Dolby Digital surround sound in my living room, right? I can watch an amazing film in the comfort of my home, right? Where I can really pay attention to it. I don't have some jackass in the third row with a baby crying. I don't have all of that nonsense. Whereas with a popcorn movie, something like this, right? I grab the hubs, I go have a few margaritas beforehand, catch a sweet buzz. I'm not needing to hold on to anything because it's not that in depth of a storyline. And I can just go there and chill out. And at the end of the day, if it's not the world's best movie, who cares, right? I had a fun time. So you have a change in movie habits. You have a lack of novelty. You have a writer's strike that just ended. You have technology that's now catching up, that's allowing the movie going experience to be replicated at home in a fairly decent way. For those of, you throw money at it, right? And so there's all of these different factors that play into it, that, some will be hits and some will be misses. And I think there's more to it, to the complexity of what brings people out to drive box office sales, and this kind of idea of cinematic consumerism than any armchair quarterback or armchair Siskel and Ebert, myself included, can really put a pin in.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking about other factors too. This leads into the next bit of news. One of the things with Marvel movies especially is that people love going to see the different Marvel movies to see the setup and the lead into like the big thing. And what we've been having over this phase sort of has been the lead up to Kang as the next big thing. Yeah. And unfortunately,
why is it unfortunately? I hate Kang.
I'm ambivalent to Kang as a villain in the comics. I never really cared so much because I wasn't an Avengers fan, so I wasn't reading a lot of Kang. I wasn't reading a lot of Fantastic Four.
To quote a chorus line, "Look, my eyes are dry."
Yeah. But what they, what's happening with the actor, with Jonathan Major, who plays Kang, a lot of legal troubles that are happening there. There's been let's just say a lack of desire to continue down that way, and there's been reports that they're kind of rewriting the path that the next movies are going to be taking. So, obviously the movies themselves probably don't need to be super rewritten if they are finished at this point, but how they interconnect is probably going to change a little bit. To either find another, a headlining villain that's going to bring everybody together at the end to defeat, or maybe kind of get away from that and just do more like tracks, Dr. Doom. And so, but Dr. Doom, obviously with Fantastic Four, we're going to need that. there's been some news with Fantastic Four, and a lot of people were saying like, well, why didn't we do Doom before? Well, because we didn't set up Fantastic Four yet, so we couldn't have Doom without Fantastic Four. And at least it sounds like they are starting to cast Fantastic Four. Possibly this might be, might be rumor. I don't know if it's 100% confirmed.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of reporting for a rumor here. Seems to be a lot.
And that's why it's kind of tricky.
And, let's just say who is being talked about is Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I'm very happy about that because I find him to be a very appealing actor, and I think a lot of success with Reed Richards hits on how appealing that performer is, because it is such a layered and complex character who really has done some really shitty things to the ones he loves, however you look at it throughout the canon of the comic. So I think that's a plus. From an interesting to see, because Miles Teller, he's an asshole. I mean, he's just like one of those things like Tiger Woods. You look at Tiger Woods, you just know he's terrible in bed. You just have that look, and you just know Miles Teller is like, you just know he's like, he might not be a bad person, but he's not somebody that would like give the shirt off your back if you were freezing, Yeah,
he'll leave you a tip, but it's gonna be 15%.
Yeah, he'll leave you the minimum tip. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting.
So I'm very excited about that because I do think that's key for Reed Richards. Since and with a well balanced Fantastic Four script, it should be him carrying the film effectively.
Yeah, it's an interesting casting choice too, right? Because I mean, from as far as actor charisma goes, like he's pretty spot on. But as far as body type goes, right, not somebody that I thought they would have cast as Reed Richards. Reed Richards is usually very tall and very skinny. Pedro Pascal is kind of famous for being just hot dad bod, which is not what I think of for Reed Richards. But that's cool because if elasticity is his thing, why does the guy have to be skinny? That doesn't, that doesn't track. I mean, it's the way he was always drawn, but I think that it's interesting. And I've seen a few posts, not nearly as many as the Pedro Pascal posts, but apparently there's the part of the rumor mill too, is that Javier Bardem? I forget his last name.
Bardem.
Yeah. They're talking like the rumor is he may be being cast as Galactus. That'd be really cool as well. Just his performance, like imagine like the No Country for Old Men version of Galactus. That's insane. I love it. I'd love to see that.
Same haircut. I think that would be perfect if he just had that same haircut and just kind of walked in and it's like, I'm Galactus.
Galactus shouldn't say a goddamn word.
No, but his facial
expressions,
like his facial expressions are incredibly cool. You know what I'd like to see? I want to know who they're gonna, other than Silver Surfer though. Who's going to get like to be a herald? Like, are we going to have to? Are we going to go through Silver Surfer as a herald again if we're getting Galactus? Are we going to see Terrax? Like, what are we going to do? Like, I'm curious to see that part.
Why not binary? We just saw her, so why not? Oops, I mean, sorry, spoilers.
I will say,
but
going back to what we were talking about a while ago, and joking off of what Bill said though. I am a little disappointed in the scrapping of Kang, not because I'm a big Kang fan of like the comic book storylines, because there have not been a lot of great Kang storylines. This storyline that they were on is arguably probably the best written Kang storyline that we have ever gotten in any version. I can't think of many comics that other than maybe like a 2-issue run from like an OG Avengers run that did anything for me. Kang's never just been that person.
I came close to liking the Kang storyline in the Busiek Perez.
Yeah,
it came close to liking it.
It was like adjacent.
That's
like adjacent.
I didn't hate it. Let's put it that way. But even with what you're saying, one of my big problems was we heard about how vicious he was, but we never saw it.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a hole. But there were a lot of holes in Quantumania. There were a lot of
a lot of teas, not a lot of actual meat.
Yeah. So in terms of the casting, The other rumors for actors, Vanessa Kirby is still being bandied about for Sue Storm, but apparently pre-pandemic, Melissa Benoist, or just like 2021, like post-pandemic, but a couple years ago, apparently Marvel like absolutely loved her screen test. She was one of 4 actors that did screen tests for parts.
I mean, I could see her again. You know, I really would like to bring her back as a hero in some kind of media.
Yep. And Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and Eben Moss Bacharach for Ben Grimm. Those are the leading names being bandied about. And I also like Pascal because it kind of balances out like a totally white cast.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Well, we had more news we wanted to get to, but we got John on the horn, so he's ready. And we talk a lot, so I guess we're going to transfer over to John. So, Steve, if you can bring him in, that would be fantastic.
He is not here yet.
Not here yet. Okay.
Not here yet. He's just wrapping up his other commitment.
Okay, so also with bits of news, the actor strike is over. And with that, there are some comic-related shows and films that have gone back into production. I believe next week we see The Sandman Season 2 and Deadpool 3 resume production. Captain America Brave New World resumes post-production. It's already been filmed. But they're resuming the post-production elements to that. I imagine we'll see something fairly soon about Superman and Lois, especially with the abbreviated season that it has. It's funny because like everyone's talking about like how abbreviated that season was. That's going to be the norm
for the next year. Yeah,
coming up. Yeah, of 10 to 12 episodes. So so we do have shows that are shows and films that are going back into production as a result of the end of the actor strike.
Yeah, which I'm glad that that they are going back into production. I do not begrudge them for holding out as much as they did because the deals that the studios were providing were garbage. And it's still not ideal. It's still not perfect, the deal that they made, but at least it was miles better than anything else that had been proposed.
Yeah.
Way better than
I do think from a particular podcast I listened to, it seems to put them in a fairly decent negotiating spot in 3 years when this is over. Hopefully would avoid a strike because I do think that they will see what payments are like with some of the and there were things I never considered, that were sticking points like the self-taping. That's kind of cool that they can get payment now if they do self-tapes.
Right.
That it's not just considered, it's considered far enough in the audition process that, that there would be compensation. Steve, are you frozen?
I think he is. Yeah. I think
he is.
Yeah. I don't know if his audio.
He looks so forlorn there too.
He does. He's just like it's
like a sad Steve.
It is, or pensive. Maybe just pensive, deep in thought.
Okay, so now we got like the zygote spinning around in the fluid.
Well, while we're waiting on him, one of the things I was going to say though about my main excitement, number one, is now that the strike is over, is that we are getting production again and we're going to get shows and stuff like that. My biggest fear with the writer's strike was that it was going to go on long enough that we were only going to be able to look forward to basically a bunch of reality television, which is kind of, we saw that in like, the one of the predecessors to the strike, right? Where a bunch of good shows got scrapped and turned into crap. And then we just were flooded with a ridiculous and offensive number of just reality television shows, which I personally hate. And I think it's a detriment to society. But so I'm glad that those are over, or at least that we did not see that influx flood us, right? And maybe that's also a thing with streaming too. Well,
I think we're already drowning. We're already drowning in reality shows. There's not much more they could shove in.
Yeah,
there's no more gaps to fill.
I'm thinking of Steve's reaction to thinking of all those goddamn baking shows you have from around the world on your Plex.
I mean, I love the baking shows; those are great. But I mean, who needs yet more
Yeah.
Big Brother? We don't need
The
5 seasons of Big Brother in
the
1 year.
one classic reality show that I did enjoy was The Mole, because
Yeah.
you weren't out to make someone else lose. You were just out to promote yourself forward. And if someone, didn't have the points, that was on them. That wasn't on you. I like that. I like that dynamic. I thought that was a good show. I wish that it continued.
Well, there is. If you like that, then you'll like The Traitors, because that's kind of the same concept.
Yeah.
Except they're all kind of in this mansion together. They all have to work together for challenges every week or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end of every night, the traitors, whoever they are secretly, selects at least one person to kill every night. So somebody's going home every night. They don't know who. And then the next day, they have to figure out who was the one, or who were the traitors, who were the ones that sent the other person home.
See,
So,
that sounds
it's very-
nasty
it's-
to me. That sounds nasty.
Oh, it's an interesting concept because they,
I don't think I like that.
It is really interesting because the people, when they all get there, they don't know who's going to be picked as a traitor, and those contestants get picked, and they have to kind of like.
Doubt I'd enjoy that show at all.
It's a lot of fun. The British one's a lot of fun.
I doubt I'd enjoy
out
that
the British
one bit.
But yeah,
From a train wreck standpoint, I used to love The Swan, about the
Train
plastic surgery. That was like, and they had that like really like over the top British female hostess. Are you ready for your reveal? Because
I'm ready for even more.
Because there wouldn't be any mirrors. Like people couldn't look in the mirror for like 2 months.
Did they not have like spoons or puddles?
Are you
flying
ready
around?
for
They
your
knew what they
reveal?
looked like.
Yeah.
The worst one, my husband watches one called Love is Blind, where they keep people like sequestered in little shows and they make them talk to one another. And y'all, the show, it may change my politics. I'm starting to think that maybe gay marriage really did destroy the sanctity of marriage and the relationship because it's led to this. It's now meaningless and not worthwhile, and it's terrible. And he makes me watch, like I have to be in adjacent rooms where I can hear this stuff, and I just want to scream and beat my head into the sheetrock.
Did either of you guys watch Who Wants to Be a Superhero on the Sci-Fi Channel with Stan Lee?
For like 2 episodes.
Oh,
yeah, I tried.
That show, that must have had a budget of $15.
That's generous.
Like
That is
generous. It was a potluck craft table. I can tell you that.
It was basically
people had to bring their own hot dish.
If you haven't seen it, it was essentially just a cosplay contest or something, right? Like
that's pretty much.
Yeah.
I do have an autographed picture of Fat Mama though.
Why?
She was at this small con and she was very nice.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That's good. That's good. Oh man, but so for new content, and again, another movie that's coming out, and I think we talked about there's only one MCU movie next year, there's only one DC movie next year.
There's 3.
We have 3 Sony movies, Spider movies, possibly 4, depending on when they can finish the next Spider movie.
That won't be finished. That won't be finished.
Probably not, because they have to do all the audio. But you have Kraven the Hunter that's been pushed to early next year. You've got Venom 3 that just got back to, I guess, to finishing up reshoots or something now.
I think they go back into production in 3 weeks.
Yeah, so it'll be.
I think Hardy has something he has to do before this.
Yeah, so it'll be sometime later in 2024, but that's when it's expected. And then we also have the latest trailer just dropped for Madam Web, who, when I think Spider-Man, I immediately think Madam Web. But as somebody who is not a big other Spider fan, this looks like a great movie. The trailer is exciting. The concept is, of course, cool. Divorced from Spider-Man, which I thought was very interesting. It's divorced from Spider-Man himself, because Spider-Man is not in this. However, Spider legacy characters are, because the whole conceit is that Cassandra, Madam Web, can see the future, and she uses her premonitions to protect 3 girls that go on to become Spider Women in the future, all Spider Woman characters. And apparently the villain in this is Ezekiel Sims, who is supposed to be
the JMS run.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I am suddenly interested.
So, but in the comics,
Bill do a 180 live.
Exactly. He's like, wait a minute. But in the comics, he's a hero.
I am
Peter
quite
Parker.
excited about this now.
Oh yeah, but like
and
he's
she's
the one
actually a better character for all that totem shit than Peter is.
Yep. And that's why it's supposed to be kind of interesting that he is the villain here. Trying to stop her and somehow kill these future Spider Women throughout the movie. So there's probably some really great twist in there where he becomes a villain when he shouldn't be a villain, and of course has to deal with like future and premonition and like changing.
The only thing that I knew about this, because if I don't have to see it, I don't really. And for me, like I know these start dates just because I researched this with the start dates, because I just find that fascinating. How quickly some stuff can go into production and how slowly some stuff is going to take. Hearing that like they're negotiating a higher budget for Stranger Things next season just because the kids are going to be so old that they may have to de-age them a little bit.
Yeah,
using CGI. The only thing I knew was that Julia Carpenter factored into it. And
yeah.
So
it's Julia Carpenter. Oh gosh, I know all of them. It's Spider Girl and 2 different Spider Women. Jessica Cruz.
Also I was very surprised in reading about the intellectual bundle that they got. Somehow Wasp, Janet Van Dyne, like Sony has rights to do a version of Wasp.
Really?
I guess because of some of the storylines in the 90s, like the Web Wars.
Yeah,
she had a role in that. I was like something like Quicksilver doesn't surprise me at all. That's centered on that.
I'm actually okay with that though, because Marvel, I like what Marvel has done with Wasp, but we haven't really seen a lot of classic Janet Van Dyne, right? We've seen elder stateswoman Janet Van Dyne, but so maybe we get some young Janet, right? We get to see some of that fashionista Janet, like that would be very cool.
Yeah, I know she I'm not really that versed in 90s Spider-Man, but I knew she was part of some of the storylines, so I guess that's where the justification for that comes in.
Yeah, the favorite
and yet
thing
they don't have Kingpin. Yet they can do like an animated Kingpin, but they can't do a live action Kingpin.
Yeah. I don't know if they're even going to bother with the Janet Van Dyne. I mean, really?
I doubt they will. I doubt they will. But it was just interesting seeing, some of the characters that that were part. I think, it might be if there was anything that ever fell under Spider-Man editorial. I don't know.
Maybe.
But then if that's the case, wouldn't Cloak and Dagger fall? But
what about Firestar?
Yeah, but they weren't.
Could be.
I mean, there's eventually going to be a Black Cat movie and Silver Sable, I guess.
Are we ever going to get six-armed Spider-Man though? That's the real question. So
I'm sure.
I want Spidey in a Fantastic Four shirt with the bag on his head.
Yes,
that's Spider-Man I want.
My favorite.
I want my Spidey to look like Frobish Man.
My favorite thing about this though was our friend Hassan talking to our friend Arnie about this either today or yesterday. I forget which one it was. And he basically, our friend Arnie famously has an entire run of ASM, right? From Amazing 15 to on up. And he said, Hassan said, "Hey Arnie, did you?"
I have to ask this about Arnie. Was it just the original series or everything after that?
Everything. He's current.
He's current. Okay.
Yeah. As far as I know, he's current. But so Hassan was asked Arnie if he'd seen the trailer, and Arnie's like, "Well, yeah." And Hassan's like, "I just wanted to extend my condolences." And Arnie's like, "For what? What do you mean?" He's like, "Somehow this made the worth of her first appearance go down even more. And Arnie's just like, I hate you. So, which it did. I looked it up. Yeah, somehow it did. Like the value of Madam Web's first appearance dropped this week. I don't know why. That's the opposite of what normally happens.
Is it old lady Madam Web?
Versus, I don't know.
Like Cassandra Webb? Because I know they're like the old lady Madam Web was the original one, but then there was Cassandra because she went blind, but then she, could see the future. Like I read the whole story about her at one point, that there was like, the different Madam Webs and like how they all factored in together and what happened with
I would be very okay with Kang appearances going down because I got a few holes in the Avengers. I would be very okay with that going down.
Yeah.
Eternals went, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
You can get Eternals like on a, apart from like the first issue and wherever. There's one character that comes in later, maybe Cersei, where she's not in one, but she appears a little later, and that issue still has some traction. But yeah, the Eternals went. They're much easier to purchase now. Star Fox, that kind of peaked.
Yeah.
I guess it's important.
Yet that damn Mobius, that issue of Fantastic Four with Mobius, that still retained its value.
For some reason.
Damn, I'm gonna cough again. I'm very sorry, guys.
Okay. I think we're still waiting for John. I know he was going to be wrapping up, but he is not yet available. Do we want to maybe start on our comic reviews?
No, do we have some other news to get to? I thought we did.
Well,
we did.
It's a blip, but one of the things, something kind of cool happened today. And for those of you who are like 90s comics fans or OG cartoon fans, a very famous, very well-known property jumped back in the mix. Something that we have not seen in a while, and to kind of rave reviews. I've seen a lot of people love it. And that is the return of G.I. Joe comics, and it picked up sequentially. So G.I. Joe number 301 came out today. It's written by Larry Hama, who famously is a legendary scribe of not only that, but a lot of comics. But it's drawn by Chris Mooneyham. And I haven't read it yet, so I haven't made it to the local comic shop to see what's going on. I might actually pick this up because I like Chris Mooneyham's art. Our friend Jason Wood has posted some images on it here and there. And of course, they're just available on the internet. It is ridiculous. I have never, ever seen the Joes look this cool. It is absolutely stunning. So if you're nostalgic for 90s, if you're nostalgic for mid 80s cartoons, kind of that world, and you grew up on Joe, go to your local comic shop, see if they got an issue of 301, or if not, order it from a place that you can get it from legally. Obviously we want to pay for it, but
Yes.
Since you guys have spent so much time this week watching these kind of old school Godzilla movies, old school properties, are there anything like G.I. Joe, like this kind of cartoons that you're nostalgic for from your childhood, that you would like to see kind of come back and be have this resurgence? I mean, famously for me, I say famously like I'm somebody nobody knows who the fuck I am. But Gargoyles came back, and this got me all excited. I'm still reading Gargoyles. It's one of my favorite animated shows. So is there anything like that you guys would love to see kind of come back in a respectable way?
Mine's all fringe stuff, like Visionaries and Mask.
Yeah.
Visionaries?
Mine's all like Visionaries. Yeah. I'm a sucker for Arthurian legends, and that was better than that King Arthur and the Knights of Justice or whatever that stupid thing was in the 90s.
I had the toys. I had some of the toys for Visionaries.
Yeah, they're in the bunker.
The little hologram. You just like heat it up. It was touch or heat sensitive or whatever. You just kind of like rub their chest, and you can see like their crests in like hologram form. It was very cool.
Yeah,
it's a very transformative moment for young.
And the leader of both sides, they
just rub their belly, and it makes me happy.
But they also like the Leoric and Dark Ling Lord or something. Dark Storm. They were like kind of daddies,
Yeah.
If you remember, Steve. So there was an appeal there. Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. I would mind seeing that. Steve doesn't.
I'd like
seem
to see
have
Captain Planet get brought back in comic form.
That
That'd
was
be
after
fun.
me. That was after
Yeah.
my time.
Captain.
Yeah.
I think Captain Planet had its resurgence in Robot Chicken, and I think that was a perfect venue for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, I
mean,
just replied to John. Apparently, he's on a show right now where they're going through everybody's campaign. So I just told him to, just hang in there, and we'll start our current comic talk. So
he's being held hostage.
So let me see. So in terms of that, we got a Marvel and 2 DCs, right?
I think so.
2 Marvels and 1 DC.
2 Marvels and 1 DC.
Or no, 2 DC.
No,
That's right. No, you guys
2
2
DCs
DCs
and a Marvel.
Marvel.
Start with the Marvel, then we'll do the DC. So Steve, you're on Marvel Island. You talk about.
Great. Okay. Well, so I've been a fan of this character, this X character, for a long time. I've bought several of the other, volumes of this character when they've come out in solo books, and there have been several of those over the past several years. But Louise Simonson decided that she wanted to take on Jean Grey, and so she did in the latest series, the latest volume of Jean Grey solo title. It's just it's a short mini series. I believe it's going to be 4 or 5 issues altogether, and the first 3 have already come out. Basically, it takes place concurrently or right immediately after the disastrous Hellfire Club this year, Hellfire Gala this year, that resulted in the fall of X, where Jean Grey was essentially practically declared brain dead. She was attacked immediately and completely made defenseless. However, that's not what is happening in her head. In her head, she is confronting her entire history as the Phoenix and as Jean Grey, and seeing if there's anything that she can do, because she still has that cosmic connection, to see if she can change history a little bit and find out where things went wrong, and if there was something she could do to completely, prevent Orcus's rise and and the fall of the X-Men.
That is a very cool premise.
It is. It's
very
really
cool.
neat. And
Yeah.
the fact that it all takes place kind of in her head, but also through all these major transformative moments in X-Men history where she played a pivotal role, or the Phoenix played a pivotal role. And so in the first one, she basically goes back to when the young X-Men came back from the future. And she basically says, well, what if I didn't erase all my memory? What if I just didn't?
Yeah,
because that was what happened.
And there were so many young Jean freakouts.
Oh yeah,
in all the rest.
Oh man,
it was like every 3 issues. There was like a total meltdown. She had told those.
Oh, it was great, and people, were dying, or people were not dying, or something would happen. But in this one, she basically is like, well, what am I going to do? And so, all the time, she was constantly having to fix things because she remembered everything that was going to happen, and so she just made sure that whatever Magneto's doing, don't worry, we got that covered. All sorts of stuff. And of course, that turned out to be an absolute disaster because Scott became terrified of her. Everybody else, she ruined things over and over and over again by trying to change history, as the young Jean, and completely just made a mess of things, and it ended up in nuclear disaster, essentially. So then she tried again in issue number 2. She goes to the point where she, as the Phoenix, or right before the Phoenix, they are piloting the Blackbird down from space, but all the shielding has been destroyed. And this is the moment right before she, her spirit and the Phoenix are combined after she supposedly dies, in piloting the ship to keep everybody safe. And she's like, well, what if I listen to Wolverine? Because Wolverine said, hey, I got this healing factor. I can pilot the ship. You and everybody else get in the back, and then I'll pilot this down, like the cosmic rays and the the lack of heat shielding and everything. I'll be fine. I'll survive, and everybody else will be safe. So she's like, yeah, why not? So she does that. And at that point, unfortunately, it is Wolverine who then is combined with the spirit of the Phoenix. And this is pre working through emotional issues Wolverine. This is Wolverine who hadn't remembered Weapon X existed and Weapon X happened. This is Wolverine who had a lot of mental blocks and a lot of anger issues from nowhere and didn't understand it. Well, the Phoenix, of course, unlocked all of that immediately. He goes off and starts slaughtering people left and right with now the power cosmic, essentially. And so she and Scott have to go and try to stop him. And in doing so, the Phoenix is like, hey, I sent somebody else who's got some issues. Hey, the Scott guy looks like he's got something going on. So it jumps from Wolverine into Scott, and again lays waste to everything, except for Jean, because now he can actually use his eyes using the power of the Phoenix. But things go horribly wrong because again, he's not strong enough. He's never been mentally strong enough to really support the Phoenix. I mean, even after what happened in AVX, that was a disaster for everybody. So, and that was only a portion of Phoenix's cosmic power. So she was like, oh, well, fuck this. I completely screwed this one up too. I mean, I had to accept the Phoenix. There was no option. There's no better option. I always had to become the Phoenix here. So then she's like, well, maybe there's some other point in time. Maybe it's when we went to go and save our son, because Madeline, the only reason why Madeline went crazy is because of we took the son and sent him to the future to hide him and ship, and she didn't know about that at the time because she thought everybody was dead. But no, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to try and make this all right. And this does not go over well either, because then good old Goblin Queen Madeline Pryor herself realizes, wait. If we're the same person, kind of, and have the same soul, kind of, can't I just, knowing everything just become the absolute overlord of Limbo and Earth and everything, and also accept the Phoenix? Why not? I need the Phoenix too. It's just disaster after disaster after disaster. Nothing goes well. And here we are kind of like, we're going into the end game here. She's running out of options where, these critical points to try. And so I'm looking forward to the next issue. Louise Simonson is doing an amazing job writing this. She's so fantastic. She does such a great job being in Jean's head and also taking all these scenarios in perfect what if fashion and just, really going crazy with the, with the eventualities here. Bernard Chang is on art, and I love Bernard Chang.
Yeah.
Wonderful artwork. Marcelo Mielo is in colors, and of course gets everything. I mean, you can see here with all the costumes, all the different colors and looks and styles of Jean throughout the years, and Ariana Mar or Mayer on letters. I just think this is amazing. And also Amy Reeder, shout out to Amy Reeder for the covers as well. The main covers that we have, it's just so dynamic and so much fun. And these are people who really truly love Jean Grey and love what kind of craziness she can get up to. And I'm just I'm excited to get to read it. And I've always loved the character. I've always loved everything that they've done with her. Well, maybe not everything that they've done with her, because there's a lot of crap that she's been through that I'm like, why do you have to do this to her? But here she's getting to revisit all of that crap, but with full knowledge, full cognizance of what's to come. And it's exciting to see her work through that. So Jean Grey, definitely pick it up if you're an X-Men fan. If you're a Jean Grey fan, pick it up.
I missed this. I would have picked it up based on Wheezy's name alone.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the issues that Wheezy wrote of the X-Men Forever recently, the X Factor issues, those were pretty good. I forget like how long she's had an association with Jean, from being, from editorial onto, whenever, whenever Peter David took over X Factor.
Yeah. Well, even on a lot of Claremont's run, like from what I understand, based on listening to panels and watching documentaries and stuff like that, Wheezy was always very behind the scenes. He may not have been listed as an editor, but she was
Oh no,
always.
she was Claremont's editor for like 5 years.
Yeah, no, I was saying even on stuff that she wasn't the editor on.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
she was always behind the
Yeah.
scenes. Her and Ann Nocenti both were
Yeah.
very much involved in a lot of the plotting and a lot of the stuff that Claremont did. Obviously, I'm not, that he did the heavy lifting there, but they were very involved in crafting the long story of these characters and stuff. She's just look, Walt and Wheezy are. They are something else, right? They are. I know it warms my heart, like just to think about them. Everything about them is perfect. And I would have grabbed it just for her alone.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I didn't know this.
By me too. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to grab this.
Yeah.
And there, Steve, there's 3 issues out now.
There are 3 issues out so far. The 4th one comes out, I think, next week, maybe the week after.
Or maybe a trade. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. If you right now it's close to the end, so if you wanted to wait a little bit and pick up the trade, that's recommended too. Or if you want them in singles, if you can't wait for those, it's worth it. And especially with some of these covers that have come out, they have some good variants too.
Nice.
Plus Amy Reader's stuff, I love. So
yeah.
All
right, Caleb, I know we have a DC book that you want to talk about. I just want to throw out a football thing. I don't know if you've been, because I always have pop-ups going on here. Joe Burrow is out of the Bengals-Ravens game with a right wrist injury that looks bad.
That's not good.
Yep, that's not good. So just wanted to give you that.
I missed that. Thank you. I am keeping up with it. Just luckily I have NFL. Yeah. So I've been keeping up with it, but I missed that part.
Everybody check your fantasy rosters.
My fantasy team is killing it right now. Like I'm 8-1 this.
I
season.
haven't done fantasy in years because the thing is, like, I end up rooting for scenarios in real life where it's just wrong, and it got to not be fun. I think mainly because of some of the people who were involved in the league. It should be fun. So
for those of you who don't know what
I'll do a pool at work, but that's all I'll do now.
Fantasy football, guys, is D&D for jocks. Just so we're all
pretty much.
If you don't know what that is, like I love it though, but and I'm doing great. So, but no, I do have a book to read.
Except the dungeon masters are become some of the most miserable people because of everything they have to deal with.
Yeah, I would never be a commissioner.
I would never run a league ever.
Never going to
ever.
100%. That would ruin everything.
Unless I was like retired, because that's the level of time you have to dedicate to it.
I feel like Bill as a commissioner is what is the meme from with the board and all the wires going everywhere. Like that's Bill as a commissioner, right? The conspiracy guy. That's him. Yeah. But yes, comics, right? Not just football. Although we can take a football break if we need to. We'll dive in. I did read a couple books this week. One of which is one of the best things I've read in a very long time. Right, very very long time. I didn't want to spoil. Like I didn't want to when we were talking about this on our little behind the scenes thing. I asked Bill. I said, Bill, have you read the new Birds of Prey series? And Bill said, I have not, but I can before Thursday. And I said, I'm not going to say a single thing about it. I want to know what you think about it. I don't want to color the way that you think or anything like that. Now, having been on the show, I am glad to say that this is one of my favorite series of the year so far.
And Steve, you will suddenly be interested when we talk about a character. You will suddenly be interested.
Will I?
Yes, trust me.
Steve, I think that you would love this book. Even if said character was not in there, I think Steve would really, really enjoy this book. So Birds of Prey is written by one of my favorite modern comic writers, Kelly Thompson. Art by Leonardo Romero, colors by the great Jordi Belair, and then letters by Clayton Cowles. So I think this book is going to get some Eisner nods. I really do. That's how good I think this book is. This is and based on the film that we just kind of reviewed and talked about, I'm really kind of in the mood for female-driven action hero kind of vibes, and this book delivered. So it opens up with none other than Dinah. Dinah Lance, the canary herself, is just chilling. Her and Ollie are, just hanging out on bed. They're having a conversation, and something is bothering Dinah. Something's wrong, right? And she's got to do something, and she's explaining this to Ollie, how she has to move forward, and it all has to revolve around her sister, right? Sin, or and I'm using sister. I like Bill can fill you more in about that relationship, I think, than I can. I don't have the kind of the history with that. I just know they're close, right?
She was introduced toward the end of the Gail Simone run, I think, and she's like an adopted sister who it's almost the same as Cassandra Cain,
right?
You know, that she was a the League of Assassins prodigy, and she split the scene, and Sin is short for Cynthia, and Dinah basically became her foster sister for a time.
And she's very, very close, right? And they've had a relationship on and off, like I think any siblings or any kind of chosen family, they have their on again, off again. But something's going on with Sin, and Dinah has to jump into action to save her, and she is going to need a rock star team, right? She is going to need people who, like, she wants a team that if you saw this team walking down the street, you would just like your heart would go into AFib and you'd fall over because you're just to avoid the murder that's about to happen. Right?
They literally say a team that's going to make people shit their pants. They literally say that in the comic.
Yeah, it is great. Also getting to see Ollie's abs is also great, but so that's neither here nor there. And so Donna embarks on this mission to go out, and she's going to start putting together this team. And you know, Bill kind of foreshadowed this. The first person she goes to is in fact Cassandra Cain. And why would you not? If you're looking for one of the best, like the person that Batman has said, I don't know if I could beat her, you know, one-on-one, right? Like when Batman says that's big doings. So, you know, she happens to find Cassandra just destroying some League of Assassins ninjas. And they embark on a double-page spread that is one of the most amazing things ever. Just makes me happy to see, and it's just them whipping ass all over Rooftop. Stop number 2, they go to fetch the next member of the group, and while Cassandra Cain is small and surgical, right, they might need an enforcer. So they go to the one person who fits that mold and who would be great on an all-female team. They walk up to Big Barda and like, hey, you come here. And Big Barda is like, oh, what we're doing. And by the way, Big Barda is just beating the hell out of some vampires when they find her. Because, you know, why would she not be? And so Barda's like, sure, you know, you've got a scalpel, you've got a tactician, you're going to need some muscle. I'll join the team. And she's a little hesitant at first, right? She's not quite on board, but then Dinah's just like, hey, you know, this is about Sin. Like, Sin's in trouble. Sin needs help. And Barda's like, oh, well, you should have just led with that, right? Like, well, that's what we needed to know.
We've never seen that story, so that's going to be interesting.
I know. I'm excited about that. That's going to connect some dots. I love when they do that. They let you know, hey, like there's history here that's new history, right? That is cool. From there, we go to meet the next person, right? And this makes me happy as a fan of this particular world, right? They go into Wildstorm, right? They pull that in there, and we get Zealot. The next person on the list that they're going to recruit is Zealot, and they just happen to find Zealot. And you know, if you know Zealot, she's knocking boots with Grifter. So they were doing what they were doing, and they jump up and they're like, hey, grab your swords, come on, we got business to attend to. You know, and she's just like, where are we going? And you know, Dinah's just like, yeah, that's going to be a story, right? You just need to trust me and come with me. And it's this building the team exercise. They add a few more folks. It wouldn't be an all female driven DC story if Harley Quinn was not involved. So of course she's there. And I am the kind of person that when I see Harley Quinn in a book these days, I'm just like, okay, that's, you know, kind of eye roll. Maybe we're just shoehorning her in. She's kind of like Batman. She's ever present. She's everywhere. Really works well in this. Kelly Thompson makes it work extremely well in this as far as fitting her into the team. She's that element of chaos. And by the end of the book, there is one person to add to the story, and it's this kind of futuristic character named Meridian. That, again, I've seen Meridian before. I am not completely familiar with who she is. I know she's a time traveler. She in the world that we're in now, her name is Maya Mizoguchi, but she goes by Meridian in the future. She's got this very Bill, what is the early anime where they're flying, like they're the hawks or whatever, they fly these
Gatchaman.
Yeah, Gatchaman. Like, she's got this very Gatchaman look to her. And now the team has all been assembled.
Right.
So and they're all curious.
But let's get Steve excited.
Okay.
Because Meridian reveals that her younger self is Maps from Gotham Academy.
Exactly.
Yep, there we go. We got a gay gas.
He went away. He turned his camera off.
I got so shocked. I actually just had to shut off the camera. That's so Maps. Mizuguchi.
Maps.
Yep.
My Maps.
Yep.
Oh.
He is on this.
Oh, now you're interested.
And
just
Steve,
for her, just all the other pages can just go away, but just her.
It is.
I want a screenshot of that face. Okay, we're good.
It's kind of a spoiler, right? And as you can see from the cover of the first one, that's the one character they don't show on here, right? So sorry to spoil that for anybody, but the book is 3 months old at this point, so you had time. Starting in book 2, right now, we need to find out what's going on. Also, the storyline, I should say, is called Megadeth. So I think it's awesome because Kelly Thompson, but of course she did. And so essentially what happens in issue 2 is this is the juxtaposition part, right? Now the team has been assembled, the gang's all together. We got to find out what's going on and what's happening and why they are where they are. And it all circles around, and there's this really good editor note about the 3rd page. It says, hey, you need to go check out the new Wonder Woman to find out what's going on, because the Amazons are not in the best of place, and they're actually taking military action right now. Like there's some big doings going on, and that plays in part, right? There's a lot to issue 2. I'm not going to get into much of it because I really want to talk about the art more than the story now that we're here. Where this goes in issue 2 is that this team has to break in to some place that is supposedly impossible to break into, right? Some place that, other than possibly like 1 or 2 people or 1 or 2 men, no men have gone, before, right? It's and that's a big clue. But they have to get there somehow, some way, and that's going to take some Harley Quinn creativity, right? So I want to leave it there. The storyline in and of itself, just by itself, would be enough to get me amazingly excited. I think it's incredibly well done. Kelly Thompson is dynamic. I love her. She's fun. She's bright. In much the same way of the film that we talked about yesterday, she takes this kind of, she's not afraid to be violent. She's not afraid to show you some down, dirty, nitty gritty, but she's not cynical. Like there's not a lot of cynicalness to there. Or even if you go back and you read, Jeff the Land Shark stuff that she's done before and that whole series. There's just fun, energetic happiness to her, even when it's a murder squad, which is really cool. But Romero's art is jaw-dropping. And I mean, and it's a combination of Romero, the lines and Belair's colors, but it has got a retro feel. He plays with the panels. It's not 4th dimension breaking, but he angles the panels. So like when there's a scene where people are sliding down the building, he angles the panels so the panels look like a slide. He has this eye for motion, this kinetic energy. It's a little bit, it's like I was trying to figure out how to explain the art style, because
can I offer what I felt?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know how Mike Allred is in love with the 60s?
Yeah.
This is a Mike Allred who's in love with the 90s.
I could see that, right? I also saw some but in love with the 90s, but not afraid to homage the greats, right? Like there's there's some Wally Wood in the lines of the face.
There's also there's John Romita heroic poses throughout, and I don't think you automatically, you've seen here, apart from Dinah's posture there, that's probably not an artist you really would think of as an influence, but the more you go through it, it's almost like there's these classic Spider-Man poses, and he's doing it for these ladies.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that element of it.
I do too. And the art style is not in the same vein, but when you look at the positioning and you look at the composition of pages, there's some Darwin Cook composition there, right? Like I thought that was really cool. And Belair plays it perfectly with these kind of muted, matte, oftentimes pastel colors, and they're not afraid to play with Zipatone, which, I'm a whore for Zipatone. I love it. It's just, it's a really great combination of things that you get to see here that add up to a very new take on a classic film, and I mean recency bias, right? But there's some Mooneyham in this too, right? Like there's some of that feel for it, which is that '90s element. I think it's really great, visually stunning. The story flow is amazing as far as just the reading the panels. It's just a win. I can't get enough of this book, and I cannot wait to see what kind of shenanigans they get into, right? Especially when they get to where they're going. The way that they travel there, Bill, I don't know if you've read issue 3, have you?
No, I only have the first 2.
I am not going to ruin that for you, right? So, but the way that they travel where they're going is phenomenal. The people that they tap into to help get them there is hilarious. This is fun stuff. It is really fun stuff. I highly encourage everybody to pick this up. I really do think that this is going to get some award nods. It's just magical. It really is.
I really enjoyed this too. I love that with a series being Dinah-centric, that they pull from almost every version of Dinah. So, the only time that Dinah really had a relationship with John Constantine was on Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yet that relationship is there.
It's here.
Yep. Yeah. With Grifter, that her main connection with Grifter was from the New 52 era Team 7. That's there. So there's a lot of cool elements where it's just, if it happened, we'll throw in. I love the justification for Harley being part of the team, not just as a chaos agent, but that was mostly on Cassandra's instigation, where they were in a street fight. And she basically tells Dinah, she almost beat me. This is somebody we really should have. And, anytime you see Harley Quinn, you just think sales ply.
That's me, right? Yeah.
And there's there's such an organic rationale to why she wants to be part of this team, and how she's kind of a perfect foil for Dinah in a lot of this. The thing I love the most, Big Barda as Thor. I loved that. I loved it. I can't believe no one's ever done that before. It's, when you have a powerhouse, and it's so natural and such a sensible choice. I also really love that this is a Birds of Prey that by edict, Barbara Gordon can't be part of.
Right.
And, there's a hole there. That there's a hole there, and they know there's a hole there, and how that's going to be addressed as time goes on, it'll probably be very interesting. But I'm not as effusive. I thought this was a very, 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 very good book. I don't see it as like a runaway with Eisner's, but it's definitely worth picking up without a doubt. It's by and large, a lot of the Dawn of DC books have been good. They haven't really been clunkers, and I enjoyed that a lot. And the cover and
the art teams that they have on those are really good. Cover's great. And I mentioned earlier some of the stuff they do with panels. Steve, if you go back to full screen, if you could. One of the things that they do here, right? Like they're pushing people.
The skeleton thing.
They push. They do. It's not breaking the fourth wall, but they're using the medium, right? And I love when artists do that. They use the panel and the medium as a part and plot of the plot of a storytelling element, right? It's outside of the panels, but it's inside the comic book. It uses the negative space. I think that is brilliant. That shows a mastery of the understanding of what comics can do as a visual literature. You also, you get some of the ways that he maps out the pages, some of that composition we were talking about. I can't get enough of this. I'm sold completely, right? I won't be surprised if it doesn't get noms, because the world hates me, and that's fine. I think it deserves a lot. I want to get as many eyes on this book as possible, because it's one of the best. It's one of the better things I've read. It's clever. It really is.
Cool. All right, cool. Well, I mentioned Dawn of DC, and my book is also a Dawn of DC. And Steve, if you can put up my graphic here, this book is Alan Scott, Green Lantern #1. So the writer on this is Tim Sheridan. The artist, who I am unfamiliar with, was Cyan Tormey. Great work, and a stunning cover there by David Teleski. And with the retconning of Alan Scott as a gay man, which was basically germinated as part of the Earth 2 element of the New 52. That's one element of New 52 which has survived. There's been some, interesting short stories here and there, but he hasn't had the opportunity to be the anchor of a storyline until now. So what is this story about? It starts off in 1941, and he is in J. Edgar Hoover's office, the closeted leader of the FBI from the 1930s into the 70s. Steve, one of the graphics I have is Alan in. No, we'll go to that one. Yeah. So this is basically where the storyline starts, and Hoover is basically pressuring Green Lantern to be more active with the Justice Society of America. Now, he's considered a founding member, but that was more because he has a fairly high profile in Gotham City. That is where Alan Scott operates. That he and Batman and Superman and Jay Garrick are kind of figureheads, but they're not really active on the day-to-day team. And that actually is reflected in the original JSA stories. And he kind of strong arms him into becoming a more active member of the Justice Society. And how does he do it? He has pictures of him and a dude in the nude in 1936. So the storyline goes back and forth a little bit. This was one of the I thought structural problems with the issue, because it wasn't clear cut what was 1941 and what was 1936. But if you go to the other image, here we go with 1936, and you have two men who were part of the Army Corps of Engineers in bed together. That certainly would have been depicted back in the golden age. And what you do have here is, a very believable gay relationship, and, touches on issues that, apart from just, needing to hide, it's the first time I've seen Alan Scott's religion brought into this, where he does view it as sin and is trying to come to terms with that. A lot of the Alan Scott as gay has, they just been flashes. There hasn't been a really deep dive into this, and this series does provide that opportunity. So in terms of what's going on back in 1936, you can also refer back to the Golden Age short story that's in the Golden Age sampler, the new Golden Age, whatever, that's come out in a couple of different names, where there's this force known as the Crimson Flame, that is this power source, and the Army Corps of Engineers decide they're going to harness this, and they bring along their best and brightest, which includes Alan Scott and includes his compatriot there, Johnny, who is apparently a very brilliant mathematician and brilliant in terms of the physics aspect of engineering. And they go out to harness this crimson energy, and it turns out it's actually sentient, and that causes some problems. Now, we don't have the full storyline because we bounce back and forth. In 1941, Alan is a bit upset naturally because he's being strung into activity because they got the goods on him, and they also know he's Alan Scott. They know Green Lantern is Alan Scott. He talks to his closest thing he had to a sidekick, Doiby Dickles. That dude was an element for a number of stories throughout the 40s with Green Lantern. And as they're talking about this, they hear that there's a robbery and that people have been kidnapped over at a bank. and he goes to investigate, and apparently there's somebody looks a lot like Johnny. And then we flash forward. We don't have the full story, and then the last panel is shattering, and it just is. It's really hard to look at as any kind of gay man. So I'll just show it. I didn't provide an aspect here. So Steve, if you can go full here. I love that scene as Harvest of Youth is the other page. But if you could just go to the full version, you'll see here.
Yeah.
You see Alan Scott in Arkham playing upon Gotham mythology, and it says, "That's why I'm here." And the next is conversion.
Yeah.
So that was jarring, and I found Tim Sheridan to be a very good hook on the history of being closeted, and it was a definitely worthwhile first issue, and I'm very enthusiastic about what comes forward. My only criticism for this series, for the issue, is the non-linear aspect of the time bouncing back and forth. It could have been a bit more refined, and the art's great.
Yeah.
Yes, Bill, you said you weren't as familiar with Cyan Tormey. Did a lot of Tom Taylor's Superman, Son of Kal-El, especially towards the end there.
That's him.
That's him.
Toward the end. Okay.
Yeah, like 15, 16, 17, 18. A lot of that end of War World stuff where him and Superman meet, and the coming out to his dad issue. Yeah, that was all him.
Okay, great. But it's really good work here.
Yeah,
really good work.
He's very talented.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, Steve, it looks like we got someone knocking on our door now.
We do. We have somebody just right backstage who's popping on. It is Mr. John Horsley.
Hey, John, how's it going?
Sorry for the delay.
Oh, no problem
no
at all.
worries.
We know you got to promote, so that's no problem at all.
You got to work the press tour.
Got to do that. Yeah.
Now, John, unfortunately, if you can hear it in my voice, I'm kind of like hanging on there. So I'm going to give the reins to most of the interview to these other two guys. So, Steve, why don't you take us into it with John, and we'll find out all about his Kickstarter.
Definitely. Yeah. John, thanks again for joining us. I was looking back through our archives because you've been on our show before, but it's been quite a while.
And we wore shirts.
Nice. I love that shirt.
I don't have one. Sorry.
And Caleb doesn't have one. So clearly he's not a fan. But you've been on the show before to promote the Eynes Anthology when that was originally being kickstarted. And of course you've worked on that. And you are part of the spoiler verse with the podcast Spoiler Country. And there's some other stuff that you've worked on as well. But what here is Jonly Nonly about? This seems to have kind of followed your career the past, I think since 2008. So
Yeah.
There's a lot there. Could you tell us about that?
Of course. So if you backed Eynes Anthology, this is nothing like that. So just throw it out the window. It's not anything close to that at all, except for the fact that it has my name on it. That's the only thing similar to it. So I got my start in comics in 2003 doing webcomics, right? I created a webcomic called Y2CL. I was very creative, and I made all the characters named after myself and my friends, just using our names, and based everybody off of my friends. So my character was JN because my actual name was just like letters J and N. And like there was, Dylan and Calvin and Jeff and Nick, all just actual friends from high school and college. And then fast forward to 2008, actually rewind to like 1975 before I was born. Since my first name's letter J, my middle name's letter N. I'm the third. So my dad and my grandfather also have the same name. When my dad got out of the Air Force, he had to get a new Social Security card for whatever reason. And on the phone, they asked him to spell his name. He said, okay, it's J only, N only, Horsley Jr. A couple weeks later, his Social Security card comes in the mail, and it says Jonly Nonly Horsley Jr. on it. So that's insane. Yeah. So fast forward back to 2008, I'm laying in bed with my wife, and we're making we used to like, when we first got married, we would like just like write notes back and forth like you do as a stupid kid and draw pictures and stuff. And she drew a picture of me and a picture of my friend Jeff. And in the style you see in the book, where it's like not necessarily the best art style, but it's there. And she named it Jonly Nonly, and she named him Jeffers. And I was like, oh, this is funny. And then she drew a little comic strip that was, very crude, because she's not a comic artist, she's not an artist. She's just, who she is. And I took it and I put it online. And then I took those drawings, I took them into Illustrator, and I made vector images out of them. So then I decided to make a whole webcomic out of it. So from 2008 to 2016, I was doing a Jonly Nonly webcomic that was just stupid ass jokes. So the whole premise was like the character Jeffers just tells cringy bad dad jokes, like the most dumbest thing ever. And there's commentary on that. And then there's a lot of like social commentary. And like I would use it as like a platform to like talk about things I thought were stupid in the world, but also kind of poke fun at as well. And sometimes they landed, sometimes they didn't. And then in 2015, I'm giving you a lot of history here, but it'll all tie back together, I promise. In 2015, I did 24-hour comics day with Jonly Nonly, and it was a lot of fun. And then I did it again in 2016, but I did them not in like a strip format. I did them in like a full like comic page format. And I had a lot of fun making Jonly Nonly into a comic page format. So in 2016, I was like, I'm going to retire from doing webcomics, whatever. I don't want to make them anymore. Webcomics was stressing me out. I got anxiety, I was getting the constant, I have to post something every day or 2 days. Like that was just stressing me out too much. So I was like, I'm going to go out with a bang. And the kind of person I am is I'll go and do a bunch of creative stuff, but I'll never tell anybody or share it. I just didn't like try and publicize it very well. So in 2016, I had, I think, 8 different webcomics going. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and make 1,000 pages in 1 year. Let's see if I can do it. So I did do it. I hit 1,005 pages for the year. But
that's amazing.
It was a grind. My wife hated me for it. 1 second. I'm going to share this out real quick because I realized I haven't shared this yet. Yeah. So she was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to do it. So one of the things I did was I did a daily webcomic on Instagram that was hand drawn, hand lettered, hand colored. And every day I would do a full-on page. The paper was only about this big, but it was a full-on page. Like I would letter everything like that. Mm-hmm. And I would do it every day. And then I would do Jonly Nonly like 2 or 3 times a week. I had a comic series called Inanimate, which is like the premise of Inanimate is like the pot calling the kettle black, but the pot's a pot leaf and the kettle is a kettle. Like they're just inanimate objects that talk, and they're just ridiculous. So there's that series going. I have a series called Sergeant Blinky and His Brigade of Fantastic, which is about an army group in some nondescript war that does this. Again, it's just absurdity, right? It's just absurdity. There's just jokes about literally everything in there. And then I was doing a comic strip called PD Comics, which was public domain comics, where I would take like public domain images and like make jokes about them. Mm-hmm. And then I had a comic series, which I loved a lot, but it's really hard to promote, called Stolen Ideas, where I would take other people's ideas, like their pages, strip the words off and rewrite it, all with permission. I had permission. I asked everybody first, and I did that for a while. And then I ended up getting the full like 1,005 or something pages done that year. And then I was like, I am done. I posted my last webcomic on January 1st, 2017. And then I just was like, oh, I'm done. I started doing like the drawing you see on the background behind me, that there was one that I did in that time frame. I was like, I'm going to try and like hone my arts, because I've always been into art and drawing and like trying to draw things the best I can in my own style. So I spent a lot of that time also trying to get my skills up for drawing. And I was like, I'm going to be an artist. And so I did I did some shows, sold some art, sold some prints, sold some of the books that I printed of the 24-hour comic day stuff that I did back then. And then I got sick. I've had 3 back surgeries, and I've had a spinal infection in the last 10 years. This is all going, of course, over all that kind of stuff. I was doing okay for a while, and I did Eynes Anthology. That was in a time frame where my back wasn't doing bad. I was doing okay. I did it. Eynes Anthology funded, it completed. My printer dropped out. I went through a litany of problems with getting it funded. COVID hit. I had back surgery. I got depressed. I just said, screw it. I have to step away from doing comics. I know I have to get this Eynes Anthology funded, but hopefully people are understanding, and I will get to it. Everybody will get their things when I can get them out. And I had a problem getting the books ordered. I had a problem getting them approved. And luckily, I can say to this day, everybody has got their stuff that I know has. There's a couple people that have addresses that were bad that I don't have good. I've emailed them like 5 times saying, hey, can I get a new address? Because I want to send you your stuff. And I haven't got a response. If anybody listening or watching didn't get their Eynes stuff, just reach out to me. I will happily send it to you. But then I started getting the creator bug again. Because I've always, even when I wasn't doing stuff, I was still doing stuff in the background, you know. I've been writing my whole life. I got into like, with the Eynes Anthology, one thing that I was doing, I was like, you know what, I'm going to novelize this because that'll be fun. That'll let me practice doing writing and prose more. And that was the idea of my wife, who was like, I love the Eynes Anthology idea, but I don't read comic books. I'm like, you should do it as a novel. I'm like, okay. So I went ahead and I novelized the entire first book, as well as wrote a secondary, like smaller book for it, and then novelized some other stories that were going like in books 2 and book 3. And then that all got me thinking, you know, I started a novel in 2004 as a response to my nephew committing suicide. I should finish that because it's sitting at about 40,000 words. I should finish that because everybody who's done a test read says it's really good and that it should get done. So I then finished that novel. If you can't tell, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm now finally realizing it, learning how to go through it. That's why I jump around a lot. That makes sense for you, yeah. So I finished the
creative
novel.
output. I mean, you were just pushing this stuff out. It's amazing.
Just wait. It gets better. So I was like, I have 10 issues of Jonly Nonly, 10 24-page issues of Jonly Nonly sitting on my computer that I released kind of digitally in 2018. And then I took them down. And I was like, you know, I should just finish them, put them out there, see if anybody likes them or not. And then, because I love them. They're dear to my heart. Mostly because it has my name on it, it has my wife's name on it. I forced her to be a comic book creator because I think that's funny. Sometimes I bring her on and make her talk about it. And she's like, I don't know. I drew a picture 15 years ago, and now it's all this. So I went back through and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go through every issue again and make sure it's like, because sometimes jokes from like 10 years ago don't hold up today, and stuff that stuff that I think now, that I feel now, didn't come across 10 years ago, and I can say it better now. So I went back through each issue, and I had never actually written scripts for these. So I took them and I reverse engineered them back into scripting format, right? And then I went through the scripts. I went through and I edited things. I cut out pages that were just bad, for a lack of a better word. Added new pages in to kind of tie stuff together. Added some new elements to the books to kind of make it more of a cohesive story. And I say that word very, very loosely because there's not really a story, but there also is a story. Like I said, there's 10 issues done. I've actually written 26 issues. So I've written 16 more issues this year. And you don't realize there's actually a story until like issue 12. Then it's like, oh, this all ties together for some reason. And I know that's me expecting people for the long haul to read a lot of stuff to get to the point where it's actually, you find out there's a story to everything. But again, doing stuff like that makes me laugh. So that's why I did it.
Well, I mean, those kind of aphractic anthologies are getting more popular now, right? I think I think about books like Ice Cream Man. It does something very similar in a sense that like each issue of this anthology's got a different artist, like it's telling a different story, but over the long run, there is this umbrella narrative, right? So I mean, I think that is a way to sure, like you said, it's getting people to tap in for the long haul, but I think for comics readers who are looking for that, and that's one thing that we do hear some criticism of, everything's written for the 4 issues, this, that, or the other. There are people out there who are longing for long form comics, right, that do that kind of creative culmination. So I think that's a really cool concept.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And one thing I don't do is I don't write for the trade. I write for the issue, and I write for what's going to work for that issue. And if it works, whatever that trade story is done, that's how many issues are in it. Some of them have 5, some of them have 6. I don't try and worry about like, oh, I need to make 6 issues to make a trade. No, whatever the story is going to be, is what the story is going to be.
Yeah. And and it's interesting, how this started as a webcomic, which, for a long time, I read a lot of webcomics, especially in the early and mid 2000s. And it was interesting, like a lot of creators would start off just, hey, here's the joke. We're doing like a 3-panel, a 4-panel, a 5-panel, whatever. here's the joke. But there is that sort of progression that happens, and it comes from, the people who are putting them out as a writer, as an artist, like understanding, hey, these characters have more to say. There's more to this than just like, hey, I got a couple jokes to put out there. And I think like going back to the old newspaper strips,
that's where my brain went.
Exactly, like going back to the old newspaper strips where you had For Better or Worse. You had the Bill Ahmed's Foxtrot. These are strips that, yeah, sure, like you can read, one and okay, well, this is a great joke that works. But if you stick with it and you look at how these characters sort of interact and evolve and like have histories and have like goals and have things that happen to them over time, and believe me, when it comes to the newspaper strips, sometimes it's like years that you're reading these. And you're like, oh my gosh, the kid's gone to college. Like this whole thing is like, oh, they were doing this project for 3 years, that kind of thing. It's fun to read. And I love that you have gotten to go back and look at the webcomics that you've done and be able to kind of re-engineer them in a way that connects them, connects the stories, connects everything, the dialogue, the jokes, even, in a way that modernizes it, puts it in a bigger narrative. I think that's really awesome. And a lot of creators don't get to do that.
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
So I'm curious, obviously, I haven't had a chance to haven't read this yet, but how autobiographical is it? Because it really does seem like conceptually it's a history of you. I mean, it's going back to a history of your father and your namesake, right? But it also goes back to a history of your marriage and your relationships. And like you said, it's just over a year you wrote all these pages, right? And it's funny, and this is my ADD kicking in, right, bouncing all over the place. One of the things that I always say is that one of my favorite aspects of comics as a visual medium, right, especially as a particularly American medium, you can look back at mainstream comics over the past 100 years. It's about that old as a medium, right? And it really is a history of American pop culture, right? It's not just throwaway stuff. There is a history. You can track the socio-political dynamics of Western culture through comics. And from a long form history standpoint, that's very cool. Like if you're talking about this as an archaeological or anthropological, I can't say that word, standpoint,
I'll take it.
It does that, right? But you're doing something on the smaller scale where you're doing that same thing with your life. And not everything is going to tie into like the day-to-day. This is what I did on Tuesday, January 15th, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes it's just, this is what I was thinking about in 2017, right? This is what I was thinking about when I was hanging out with my wife and we were dealing with some shit. And this is what I did to blow off that stuff. And it's just kind of the smaller scale, not even smaller scale, like this micro scale history of you done in a way that is perceptible and is malleable enough that an audience can perceive where you're going with it, right? That's a very cool concept. So, I mean, that's a long way of me asking that question, though. But do you feel like, or do you view this as kind of an autobiographical aspect?
To a degree, yeah. There's a lot of me in this book.
Sure.
And a lot of me is spread out with all the characters. And in so much that this person right here is actually in the book. Like there's pages where the characters actually interact directly with like photos of me, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm interacting with characters and talking to them, because the one thing about the Jonly Nonly characters is they're very self-aware. They know they're in a comic book. They know they have relatively shitty artwork. They know
very meta.
Yeah, they know they have bad jokes sometimes, and they get upset about that, and they yell at me for it. And it's so fun for me to do that because it allows me to like tap in that whole ADHD. I'm gonna bounce from thing to thing and try to make a narrative out of it. Whether I succeed or not, that's yet to be determined by people who read it and review it. I think I succeeded. I love the book, honestly, all of them. But I'm also not ignorant to the fact that I know it's a hard sell for people because the art's not the best, and the art turns people off because the art is very much like vectorized. Like, I mean, that cover is a lie. The art inside is not like that cover, you know. And that cover is like, that's me like going like, you know, screaming as the issues come out of my head, because it's really just me pouring all my thoughts and emotions and feelings into a book about, you know, a dick and fart joke book essentially. But there's a lot of my political views, my views on LGBTQ, my views on science, my views on education, my views on literally anything. I find ways to put in here, talking through different ones of my characters. What's funny is like, one of the big themes of the book, or two of the big themes, is like one of the characters, Jeffers, is really big into fishing, like huge into fishing. It's a recurring theme through the whole thing of him into fishing. I cannot stand fishing. I have no interest in fishing whatsoever. That's literally put in there because the character of Jeffers is based off of my longtime friend Jeff, who is actually a championship bass fisherman. And I always make fun of him for it. And he always calls me an asshole. And I'm like, it's whatever. So that's in there for that. And then there's like a whole entire issue about Star Wars. Issue 5 isn't completely about Star Wars. And I'm a Star Trek guy. And for me, it makes me laugh that I did a Star Wars issue when I actually like Star Trek better. Even though you wouldn't know that if you read the book, because there's I actually did a lot of research into that issue to make sure I was saying the right things about Star Wars. And one of the characters named Earth is named after my friend Nick, who is a huge Star Wars fan. So I leaned on him to like make sure I was saying the right things for that issue. But I mean, it's like the meta jokes of like, I do some of those things to make myself laugh, but nobody's going to get it unless they listen like this and they hear me say, yes, I did a Star Wars issue because I like Star Trek and I thought that was funny.
Yep.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I kind of get that Star Trek thing as well. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I'm also a huge Star Trek fan. So
I like both, but I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad,
Yeah.
you know. Also, today would have been my dad's 75th birthday, so happy birthday to him.
Very cool.
He passed away 10 years ago. But
yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah.
Well, so the thing I like about, I mean, number one, I take your point about, I grew up watching Star Trek too, because when we were growing up, there were 3 Star Wars movies, right? And they weren't available.
Exactly.
So I take that point, and they were all, it's the difference between film and serialized television. But going back to the thing you're talking about, right? One of the things that you said you were considerate of, at least in a way, is that this is a hard sell to certain people, right? This is a hard sell for audiences. Which goes back to, I think, you know, did that play a role into kind of the way that you set the Kickstarter, the funding levels? Which, by the way, I should say, at least from what I'm looking at, looks like you were aiming for $1,000 and you've surpassed that. So now you're onto those stretch goals. So,
yeah.
But was that one of the reasons why you set it at that level? Was that what you were thinking?
It was, yeah. The Kickstarter was set up very, very specifically to where, like, my whole goal with this was just to print it and get it in people's hands. Like, I didn't want to hold on, my dogs are barking.
Hey, we're all dog owners. So
I have 5
that's
dogs, and they're all in the room over there.
Yep,
so
3 over here.
I have 2, but they're all sleeping right now.
Mine were sleeping.
I do have
been home.
There you go. I've got I actually have the should be able to see it pop up here. The Kickstarter page itself.
Yes.
And what we'll do is we'll also put the link in the comments for everybody who's been watching, so to be able to see that. And then when we post this, we'll put the link as well, so everyone has a copy. You know, has the ability to get there. But yeah, tell us about the Kickstarter. What do you have for the goals here? Like you said, congratulations for being funded. That's awesome. But you still got 19 days to go, which means there's a lot of opportunity here for people who have not yet signed on to join your Kickstarter.
Yeah, so I set the goal at $1,000 because I wanted just to print it. So I set it to where I could get enough money to print the copies that sold. If I made more and got my goal of printing the number of copies I want, perfect. But I wanted to at least just make it towards a low goal to where whoever bought it, I could print it and also print a copy for myself to put into my bin of my own books I got over here. And so it was very specifically done that way in that format. I was happy enough to fund late last night. And then before I could even announce my stretch goals, I hit the $1,100 mark this morning when I woke up. So the first one's already there, already done.
Very cool.
But yeah, so I was very cautious about this Kickstarter, to be honest, because I was like, I spent a lot of time talking with Ken Reef, my co-host of Spoiler Country, my co-publisher of SV Comics that we made, and my editor, Greg Smith, basically being like, I don't know how to sell this book because I don't think I can kickstart individual issues of this because I don't think anyone's going to buy that. I think they need to have a chunk of the story to read to understand what it's about. Because if you read through the whole entire first chapter or volume or whatever you want to call this, by the time you get to issue 5, the stuff that happened in issue 1 and 2 make more sense. And the jokes will land because they've been reinforced, because there's stuff that go up reference each other. I mean, there's stuff in issues 1 through 5 that references issue 25 and 22 that you'll find out when you get to those issues. So there's been a lot of thought process going into this to make sure things all interconnect, and if you don't catch the interconnection, it doesn't matter for the story. But if you do, then it goes, oh, there was something here besides just stupid jokes about, a guy and a potato, or whatever it would be. I mean, there's a lot of masturbation jokes in this, and there's an entire cover about masturbation because I thought it was funny, and I found a new word. Apparently, an onanist is somebody who's an excessive masturbator. I found that out, so I made a cover out. I made a comic book cover out of it because that's what you do. And there's a lot of that too. I would find up new words like a deodorant. I can't pronounce this word ever, but it's like a deuterosome, which is what everybody starts out as. It's an organism that starts out with its mouth and its asshole together. So its reference there is somebody calls my character Calvino an asshole, and he calls it a compliment because everyone's an asshole when they're born or when they first get impregnated or whatever. And it's stuff like that where I did research on like science stuff, and I find ways to make jokes about it, whether they're good jokes or just cringy jokes. To me, cringy jokes are good jokes if they're done in the right way. And it's just been a lot of fun to make these books and then to get them into here and to get them to where I can actually get them out. And the fact that I'm funded makes me incredibly happy. My wife, who is the co-creator of this, but has nothing to do besides me putting her name on all the books. I told her it was fun, and she goes, "Really? People backed this and funded it?" I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "Cool." But she is supportive, but she gives me crap.
That's spousal support we're looking for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, I appreciate her. Okay. I appreciate the honesty. Okay, she's honest with me. I appreciate that.
That's awesome. That really that is pretty awesome, especially because she's like, I'm gonna have to keep looking at this thing that I like sort of drew, offhand.
And her name's on every issue too, so she can sign them all too. And I'm gonna make her sign all the issues before they go out.
I'm sure she will love you for that too.
She will. She groans at me.
Yeah, but that's really cool. Yeah.
So I know you've got all these issues written. Are you going to do the rest of them in this kind of same format? Are you looking at doing like 5 through, or I guess 6 through 10, also as a hardcover, where everything matches up and everything?
Yeah. So chapter 1 is issues 1 through 5. Chapter 2 is issues 6 through 10. Chapter 3 is 11 through 16.
Yeah.
And chapters 4 is issues 17 through 26. I think I have to look at it again. But I think it's 17. And what's funny is like, at issue 11, and there's actually an in-world story reason why I do this, but at issue 11, the artwork completely changes. The artwork is no longer this type of vectorized, stuff. It's actually legit, real comic book art. And issues 11 through 16 have a couple of different artists doing the artwork for it, and it's very much in tune because of the story it tells. I picked very specific artists to do these things for those issues. So when I get there, it's going to be fun because people as a whole, like, I don't like the art. There's going to be good art in those issues. And then I kind of continue that on in issues in chapter 4, because at the end of chapter 4, the first 4 chapters all kind of tie together back to like what was happening and why things happen the way they are. But yeah, I'm approaching it the same way. I'm collecting up the volumes. I'll have individual issues, and I'll have the trade for those who want the trade and those who want individual issues. Because I like both, to be honest. I know some people like the trades collected, and some people like to have just the regular floppies. And what's kind of funny is I've got kind of an equal backing support for the trades and the floppies. Some pick the floppies, some pick the trades. It's almost 50-50 on who's doing what.
It's pretty cool. I'm personally pretty excited to see this continue. Back with backing the Eynes Anthology all that time ago. I got to, I think one of the rewards of backing was getting to read, I think like several pages of these, and it was fun, and I enjoyed it. So
they're ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's it really kind of it spoke to me in that way. It's like, this is what I used to read all the time online, like especially. And I hope, work's not watching, but I used to work a lot of late shifts, like late hour shifts where I was just sort of like clicking through Penny Arcade and things like that, like just, reading the webcomics. But this is it's fun.
So John,
Yeah,
one thing
okay.
I was going to say, one thing I need you to do though, I need you to explain your shirt while you're here. Yeah.
This one here?
So yeah, for those of you who are listening, John has a shirt that says 420 minus 213. I need you to explain that.
So, have you ever heard the song "I'm Awesome" from Spose?
Yes.
He has another song where he raps a line saying, "I'm from the 420 minus 213," and the chorus is, "Welcome to 207. Welcome to 207." 207 is the area code to where he's from in Wells, Maine. So
Gotcha.
this is a shirt I got. I bought this from him at a show, and it used to be signed, but one of my kids washed it, so I washed it off. But it's a reference to Spose and that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I like that.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. Sorry for my absence, but yeah, I'm struggling here with the voice. John, I just wanted to say thank you in terms of Webs Comics. A lot of the guests we've had on the show, whether it was Zach Crucy with Mystery Solved or Steve Bryant with Athena Voltaire, Blue Delaquante with A Human Star, a lot of people have come on promoting projects that either started or basically existed as web comics. And if you go through stuff now, there's a lot of stuff that's disappeared. Even like very big strips like Bayou are just, there's no internet trace of them anymore. And sometimes it's for very understandable reasons. There was one web comic I absolutely loved called Last of the Polar Bears, and that basically came to an end because Lindsay Sybos, who was the writer and artist, became a mother. And that was something had to go, and unfortunately it was that web comic. So I did want to thank you in a sense for kind of putting these back into circulation, because it seems that there's this time gap of this archive that unfortunately just isn't represented right now. And it sounds like, Steve, you were mentioning you went through a lot of this stuff, and I think people would be surprised by how much just has gone in the ether and just only exists on people's laptops.
Oh, it's so true. Thank you. I do. It's funny you say that, because at the end of 2017 or 2018, it's one of those 2 years, I took all my webcomics offline. I deleted them I have them still here, but I removed them all from everywhere. And to let you know how many pages that was, from 2003 to 2016, I made over 4,000 webcomic pages.
Jesus.
That I took offline. And one of my projects that I'm working on over the next couple of years, that I've been working on this for a long time too, but like in the midst of doing the Eynes and my novel and other stuff that I'm working on, my background thing, because I can never do just one thing, I always have to have something in the background I'm working on, is to do kind of what I'm doing with Jonly Nonly and represent the webcomics, at least the ones that are decent, into a print format, into a digital format, and re-release them into the wild. There are some that will never see the light of day because, frankly, they're embarrassing.
Right.
But I am an archivalist at heart, so I will never delete them. They will always be on my computer, my backup, that stuff here, but they will never be out in print. There was a book on Amazon for a while that had some of those ones that I'm not really proud of anymore in it, but that book has since been taken off Amazon.
Yeah.
And looking through the materials today, two things I really appreciated. One, I think my favorite characters are Kettle and are Pot and Kettle, like by far.
Oh yeah, they're fun. They're a lot of fun.
I just love their particular commentary. And another thing that I really appreciated is your use of the Fumetti style, of incorporating pictures and very often of yourself, as background, or actually, something that kind of gets some propulsion going in terms of the storyline. And just wondering, like, how you got to how you decided to work that element into, because it's something you don't see that much anymore.
It's pure laziness, to be honest. When I make these comics, I purposefully don't try and draw things for Jonly Nonly, because that's not the point, right? The point is not to showcase my art. The point is to showcase being creative ways of getting things done, and the writing to some degree. So the first time I ever wanted to put myself in the comic, I had thought, I can draw myself, and like, no, I'll just do a picture and then I'll use Photoshop and I'll make them in a panel with me. And I'll make that a running thing. And then I end up making it a running thing. And what's kind of funny is, I'll pause that for a second. So I had done all these with photos of me, right? For the first 10 issues long before. Over the last year, I've lost 120 pounds. I've gone from 310 down to 190. So I went back through before I published them and redid all the pictures. So they're all of me now, not being the larger person, being where I'm at now. And it's a total vanity thing, whatever, but it made me smile when I did. But I did that mostly because I didn't want to draw it. And I have this idea when it comes to making anything, but mostly making comic pages, is if I want to find a way to do something and it's not working, I'm going to find another way to make something else work that's just as good or better. And what I mean is, like, when in the one issue in volume 2, where I wanted to tell a bunch of like educational type things and jokes, I wanted to have the guys go back to school, right? Essentially in their house, all of a sudden they have a school hallway and they have a school classroom for no reason. It's just there. But I didn't want to, like, the main living room is actually a living room that I drew and colored on the Photoshops. I hand drew it. But then the kitchen they have in the house is something I made in Photoshop. So I was like, for the classroom, I took a bunch of different elements. I was like, you know what? Let's take public domain images that are free vectors out there, and let's compose things together and make it all work. And then I put a bunch of Easter eggs in there. Like, if you look in the classroom, there's a shelf with books on it, and on the books has literally the names and logos of books I'm working on and releasing over the next 5-10 years are all on that shelf. You can see them if you pay attention. And all throughout the book, if you look on the walls and stuff, there's like artwork and covers for books that I've done, or books that or books that are coming out in the next year, the year after that. So putting me in the book comes down to, I didn't want to draw myself. I thought it would be hilarious, and I didn't really see a lot of people doing it in the genre or that I was working in. If Jonly Nonly is one thing, it's experimental, right? I'm not afraid to take a risk on how I approach a page or how I approach a joke or a story. There's an old rule in comics that I don't really like. That's like, you shouldn't have more than 25 words per panel. And it's because you don't want to like overburden the reader with too many words, which I understand. But sometimes you have to have more than 25 words in the panel because you have to explain things. So I think it's in issue 4. There's a panel where I basically call that out. And my buddy Casey, who writes Bigfoot Knows Karate, he was the one who was like, you have to cut it down, make it 25 pages, 25 words. Well, the caption literally says, this panel has 86 words. Fuck you, Casey. I do whatever the hell I want. Wait a minute. Now it's 118. And I do stuff like that in the book. And there's you asked earlier about, how much of me is in the book and like how much it represents who I am. There's technically 5 versions of me in the book that are just me. There's Jonly Nonly, who represents me as a character. There's this guy, the photos of me. And then there's caption boxes. There's 3 different caption boxes that constantly argue with each other, that are all me. They all represent themselves as me, but they all argue all the time. They talk back and forth about what's going on the page or the story or with each other. So there's a lot of me in these books. There's a lot of aspects of how I feel. And there's a lot of self-deprecation, because a lot of times I'll put things in there and I'm like, that was stupid. I'm not going to fix it. I'll just call it out. And then the joke becomes not the stupid thing. The joke becomes how I call it out. And I like to make things work. I'm a big proponent of not wasting things. So if I make a page and it doesn't work, I'll rewrite it to make it work and figure out how I can make it work, especially for Jonly Nonly, because the beauty is it can literally be anything, because that's what it is. It's an experiment. It's experimental. It's meant to be an expression of just pouring my thoughts on a page and seeing what happened and seeing where they go.
That's interesting. So, I mean, we were talking earlier about this being a little bit autobiographical. We all have this, notion of, we're multifaceted creatures, right? Like, we're not one dimensional as far as who we are. And so you just mentioned you've got 5 versions of you in this book. Like, do you see that as kind of a way to like work? Because I find myself doing this all the time, right? I think this way about this issue, but I think this way about that issue, and they don't necessarily line up. And I find myself arguing with me, right? Trying to work through these internal things. Is this a way for you to do that? Like, to help you work out like these opposing viewpoints that have to kind of work together because they're part of you.
Absolutely. Yes. And you'll notice that each different, if you read through the books and you read through all the way through issue 10, you'll notice that each captain box kind of has their own personality, but they are all me, and they all know that they're me, and they talk about being me. But they all have like, there's a yellow caption box, which is like the most like forward-facing version of me, the version of me that like is positive and talking about the books and wants to make sure that it's done well and done right, explaining things. There's a slightly yellow greenish version caption box, which is more of the, he's kind of sarcastic. He's kind of stays in the background and makes snide comments every now and then. And then there's the green caption box, who's an asshole, who's calling out the yellow caption box and everybody else for doing stupid shit all the time. And he ends up being the one that says, for lack of a better term, a lot of the mean things in the comic. So, and then there's like the Jonly Nonly character he's like the idealized joke version of me in a comic book. And then me as the creator is, I'm just there because it makes me laugh to have photos of me in there. But yeah, so it all ties back into basically me having ways to have conversations with myself, which is fun and not crazy at all.
Well, it's not crazy when it's art. It's
exactly. Yeah. Everyone does it, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, also with something you said, thank you, as somebody who tends to be a floppy guy. I love you had the dichotomy of the different formats. That's wonderful to see, because if it was only the paperback, I'd be like, oh, I wonder what the single issues, like just what the what that's like to read them in that format. And that you said that they're actually written in written not for trade. I know what I'm going to be, what area of the campaign I'm going to be hitting.
And I'll tell you a secret. Each of the floppies has, so this is in the trade too, but there's a preface written like in the inside page. First page of the book is always a preface that talks about, it's like me talking to the reader, kind of explaining what they're going to read, explaining what Jonly Nonly is, kind of what the issue's about. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's serious, sometimes the Jonly Nonly characters show up on that page and talk to each other and talk to me. And then in the back of each floppy issue, which is not in the trade, there is sometimes a special extra panel, and every one of them has a poem. I've written a poem in the back of each issue, and I'm not saying they're good poems. I'm saying they're ridiculously stupid poems. But they're all like, some of them are haikus, some of them are rhyming poems. Because I like writing poetry.
I gotta tell you, man, it took me like 20 minutes to read the Christmas one. Which was awesome.
The Christmas poem in the back. The two pager.
Yeah.
Oh, that took me like almost a month to write, because it had to be very specific to like the issue and what was happening, but I wanted it to be very much the night before, or the night before Christmas, that poem. So I had to I rewrote that thing probably 1,000 times, but I'm happy with how it came out.
Nice. Okay, well, it's already late for us here, so we're going to start wrapping this segment up. So John, in terms of the contact points on the internet, where would people go? Not just the Kickstarter, but some of the other things that you're involved with. Where would they go? Yeah.
So any social media platform, I am Y2, the number 2, CL. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, this Y2CL is going to find me. Also, y2cl.net is my main website. That's where you can find all my other books, my artwork, and just kind of where I'm at. I have a new website that I'm building out, because with the launch of not my book, but the last book we did, which was Supernatural Baby Detective, that I did the colors for, that Kenrick, my co-host from Spoiler Country, wrote, we created a publishing company, or a publishing imprint, called Spoilerverse Comics. And you can go to spoilerversecomics.com. It's not fully done yet, but it'll be done here very soon. For our publishing website with all of our books. You'll have Eynes there, you'll have Jonly there, you'll have Supernatural Baby Detective there, and a bunch of the future stuff that I've worked on. And those are the places you get me in. And also, a little secret, if we hit one of the backing goals, you'll actually get an early copy of one of the books that's coming out in like 2025, because I have them done.
That's awesome. So definitely. So 19 days, and today is the 16th when we're filming and recording this. So I guess that means it would be the 5th of December.
It ends on December 6th, which is my son's birthday.
December 6th. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well, happy
Very
early
cool.
birthday to him.
I like to pick days that are meaningful for things. So I picked his
Mhm.
birthday last year. Our Eynes Anthology actually ended on my other son's birthday, who will be 18 this year. So I always pick like a day that's like meaningful for it to end on.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate. I know it's been like crazy with scheduling and everything, but I'm
Yeah.
glad you were able to hop on and join
Oh.
us and tell us about everything. So really happy.
Yeah, me too. I always have so much fun on here. It's a great show, guys. It really
Yep.
is.
Thanks.
Well,
Thank you.
And you have great shirts on too. You have great shirts on.
Oh yeah. I mean, the shirts are really great. So
Funny
yeah.
story. I actually ordered those shirts for myself, my wife, and all my kids. The Pride ones because we all loved them.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
never came. I
What?
never got them.
joke.
Yeah, and T Public was like, we mailed them, and I'm like, I never got the damn things.
Oh, jeez.
They came to us. Like that's we just got all of them.
That's
I
perfect.
have
I
like
like it.
4 more of these
Yeah.
in the other room. So
That's one of my favorite designs that I did for
Yeah.
Spoiler Crunchy was that.
And we
one.
could just show it for people if we are blocked by the names, it is Cthulhu. As
yeah,
right, yeah.
a Pride Cthulhu.
Open the mind, read more
Spoiler Country.
all the time.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming back. Anytime you have something new brewing, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And
I will. Don't worry.
We're definitely, we've already have congratulations for you for hitting the goals, but hopefully, we'll be compounding and seeing all these great incentives that you have up there. Let's, hoping that you have like very high numbers beyond what you already have.
Absolutely.
I hope so. If we hit that 2,000 mark, I've got some really cool stretch goals I plan that are pretty unique for the comic world that I won't announce yet, but they're going to be pretty awesome if we hit that. So I'm really hoping we hit that.
Nice. All right, John, thank you so much. We will be in touch. And again, we're really looking forward to this.
Thanks, guys.
I'm kickstarting like right after this. So right. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right.
Awesome.
That was fun. That was actually my first time getting to talk with him. So
yeah,
I know you all have had the pleasure before, but that's
and the thing was before we had the show, the last time he was on the show was pre-video, and John had mentioned that he lost a substantial amount of weight. And we were telling him, if we post a picture of you, dude, you might get some friend requests. So. But no, it was great to have him back on. I listened to most of it. I only had one really bad coughing fit, but it was bad. It was bad. So
well, I saw with you having to turn the camera off and everything. We were like, okay, this is serious.
Yeah.
Hold down this fort.
I also didn't want you guys to be jealous when I was eating ice cream.
I see.
Yeah.
Secret.
Nah, that's got sugar in it.
Well, I mean, right now we're at almost 2 hours and 15 minutes. Do we have time to?
I don't think we have time for a second book. Maybe could we just show everybody what our second book was?
Sure.
And just mention what the title is.
I picked The Madness by AWA, J. Michael Straczynski, and Akko on art.
I'm into team books these days, right? So I was going to talk about the first 3 issues of Uncanny Avengers by Jerry Dugan and Javier Garrón, which spins out of X-Men World and Avengers. So
yes,
pretty cool.
And I actually have the first issue of that, so I will sample that at some point. My book was, and there's a little bit of press on this one, is Unnatural Order #1 by veteran writer Christopher Yost with art by Val Rodriguez. And if this is looking familiar to you, it's because Vault, out of nowhere, provided free copies to almost every retailer that's on their list. So these are either being given away at your local comic shops or at discounted prices. So and in fact, it has a cover price of $4.99, but you might see this for free at yours. I got 2 copies of this from DCBS. And Steve, if you haven't, I imagine they might be in your next box. So a little bit of news on that one. Unnatural order by the creative members that I talked about from Vault Comics. So that's my other
Awesome.
Okay. So we're going to wrap up this show. And when we do, we hit 2 segments towards the end. The first is our Geek Gets. So, Steve, why don't you do a bit of show and tell and show us something that you got as a Geek Get?
Well, I didn't have it last night for our show about the Marvels, but it came today. So here's my photon.
Mine's not
I know,
here
Bill,
yet.
but you did have a photon. You just didn't have this photon.
I did. Yeah, I have the McDonald, which seems so. Feels like it came out 5 years ago at this point. But I did.
But it just came out like a couple months ago.
Yeah. But that is coming to me as well.
Yeah. So Disney Insiders, for those of you who have not heard us rave about it before, easy free program. Keep your tickets when you buy DVDs or Blu-rays, or even just pay your monthly Disney Plus bill. You get points.
Just hook it up, and you get. And it's generous what you get per month.
Yeah, the Wednesdays especially. That's where you get these awesome, like, really usually 400 to 500 points, and you get yourself a pop. And it's like nothing to get 500 points. So
nice. Caleb, you can join anytime. You really?
I need to. I just haven't. I have no excuses. Just need to.
But you've gotten Geek Get, so what did you have there?
I do have. Well, so my Geek Get is more of a geek gift that I have not gotten yet, but I will. Steve, if you want to throw that graphic up there, and it goes back to a conversation that Bill and I were having earlier about the NFL. My Geek Get is a ticket, 2 tickets, I should say, to my first NFL game and my first Cowboys game. If you know me, I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. My husband and I are going to be in Dallas the weekend between Christmas and New Year's as a little holiday vacation. It's also his birthday. And so we love to travel. So we're going to go to Dallas. And he surprised me for my birthday back in October by getting me tickets to go see the Cowboys hopefully beat the Lions on December 30th. So I'm very excited about that. Like I said, I grew up in Arkansas. We don't have an NFL team here. Did not grow up in a family that got to travel and go to games. I've never been to an NFL game. For those of you who know me kind of personally, one of the reasons that I love the Cowboys is because I grew up in, it was a family team, but also my best friend, a guy who was my cousin and a guy who was like my brother, Ian Argo, that was his favorite team. And he passed away this year. And that was very hard for me. And he and I were always going to go watch our Cowboys game together. Like that's one of the reasons I have never been to one, because I always wanted to do it with him. He passed away earlier this year. So I will be taking his jersey. He had a jersey with his last name, Argo, on the back of it. I'll be taking his jersey to the Cowboy game and getting to watch it. So that's my Geek Get.
I can also say, Caleb, that this is going to be a rarity because of the Lions' position in the NFC North. This is one of the few games where I actually will root with you for the Cowboys. And also, I will be going to the Giants-Packers game, which is going to be on football like a week before yours. So now, Steve, you have to go to a game.
No, I don't. No, not at all.
Oh,
I don't want to see the Panthers lose. That's such a boring game.
I know. Oh God, wow.
It's not good.
It's not. I mean, my team is not good.
Not a good
really not good. Okay, Steve, I have a graphic for my Geek Get. Back in 1978, when I was a little lad, the first set of Star Wars toys came out from Kenner, and the first vehicle that was available. I don't know if it was the first that was available, if this came out concurrently with the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing. But the first one I had definitely was the Land Speeder. So that's that in the original box. The Land Speeder did survive childhood, but not in good shape. One of the engines there is kind of bent over, and the front there is missing the trunk. But that all changed from my local shop because I now have a replacement Land Speeder from 1978. There's a little smudge here. I can clean that off. The front trunk works. These are all moved, and also it It glides. It's hard to show this here, but there's these little wheels, and it's very difficult to find these where all three are working, where one might be punched in or something. So I'm very happy. I have a replacement land speeder.
Very cool.
Yay.
1978. That is my Geek Get. All right.
Awesome.
Now we're going to wrap this show up for real. And when we do, the last segment we talk about is something we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something similar here where we woof at something, which may be a comic book. There we go. Caleb's just advertising it right there. But it also may be a TV program or a charitable initiative or a film or candy, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I don't know why I said candy. Maybe it's a Halloween sadness in that. Oh, my candy.
It's ice cream. Yeah, it was still over from your ice cream binge.
Yeah, it's that ice cream that you didn't share with us.
I did. I had ice, and it was vanilla bean. It was really good. It was really good. Oh God, here I go. So Steve, I'll start as I always do with you. What is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week is another Kickstarter get. My God.
Sorry.
It's okay. My woof of the week is a Kickstarter get, I guess, but also just a comic strip, a web comic that I've been following for a long time. He publishes on Instagram as well as on his own Patreon. But Jean-Frédéric Connet, this is his second volume of Santa Francis, volume 2. And it came because it's beautiful. And of course, this is uncensored, so I cannot open it up and show any page to you. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it came with some really great free stuff. It came with a bunch of bookmarks, some magnets, and which I can put on the fridge because they are not naked. Well, maybe one of them anyway. And then really great posters. A two-sided poster with the characters. So it was just really cool. But I'm so excited to crack this open. I've read them all already online, but getting to see them in a published format like Jonly Nonly is fun. It's really fun to see and be able to hold them. So I'm excited about that. I recommend it if you have not checked it out. Santa Francis.
Okay, great. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week goes out to the one and only LeVar Burton. For reasons that if you are tuned into social media, LeVar Burton gave a speech at the National Book Awards this past week, and in a most hilarious fashion, he opened it up by saying, "Hey, are there any Moms for Liberty people in the audience?" And nobody said anything. He's like, "Good. I don't have to throw hands then." And if I did not love LeVar Burton already, which I did, it endeared him to me even more. I can't stand Moms for Liberty. They're bigots. They're part of this, quote, neo-libertarian movement that they hate the government, except they want the government to actually be fascists and tell you what you can't read and remove things that they don't like. And they're very racist and bigoted and all that fun stuff, right? But fuck them. And when LeVar Burton's on your side, that's usually a pretty good thing. So woof to LeVar Burton for just letting them know what the business is.
Yeah.
Love it. LeVar Burton is LeVar Daddy.
Yes.
Nice. I'm gonna recommend. I'll send the video to you guys. Did you see that video by that father at a school board meeting at Virginia Beach?
Oh yeah.
Did you see that about they're not the good guys? It's great.
Trolling,
Caleb,
yeah.
You would love it. It's one of those examples where somebody, particularly about what they say about Moms for Liberty, just distills everything into such a simple format,
right.
And it's beautiful. It really is. You're not the good guys.
Yeah, there's no liberty. There's no liberty in behind your movement. It's like I said. It's just pure power.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, I have a graphic for you. If you can put it up there. My woof of the week goes to a podcast that is called Hollywood Unmasked. I got Katrina.
Very different podcast.
Yeah, it's Halloween Unmasked. Sorry about that. This is hosted by movie critic Amy Nicholson and goes through the making of the first Halloween film. And you would think after 9 episodes, you would basically talked about everything you could have talked about the making of the 1978 Halloween, and I still wanted more. It interviews everybody apart from Donald Pleasance, again, because he's since passed away. But Jamie Lee Curtis, John Carpenter, Nick Castle, archive interviews with Deborah Hill. I mean, PJ Souls, everybody who was involved in that film participated in this podcast. And I thought I knew everything about the making of Halloween because there's at least 3 documentaries that are dedicated just to the first film, and there was still stuff I learned about. It is one of those shows where the episodes are only as long as you need them to be. So there's one that's about 22 minutes. There's one that's about 55. And it's a really, really well done podcast. Halloween Unmasked is my Woof of the Week.
Awesome.
It was from 2 years ago. How it escaped me, I don't know. Maybe it was the pandemic. I'm dying here, guys. I tried. I hung in there. I hung in there.
You did. You were a trooper.
Yeah. So wish me some health. Wish me some health. I'm tired of this cold. Now it's a chest cold.
Well, I mean, the good news is that means it's progressing to get out of your system.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's so.
But even in this state, I had a huge laugh. Steve, can you please say the name of the creator of the Wolf of the Week book that you had again, please?
Jean-Frédéric Coney.
Jean-Frédéric Coney. I died. I'm sorry. I just wasn't prepared for that. John Frederick Coney.
John Frederick Coney.
Yeah.
Hey, don't make fun of my culture is not your joke. Don't make fun of my
I would say that's a perfect note to go out on. Okay, so again, thank you for joining us. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on all the social medias as Comic Book Bears, apart from Facebook, where we are Comic Book Bears Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts to download. You can find us on all of the other major podcatching platforms to listen and download in some of them, right? You can download on Google.
Yeah.
There's a few you can
Google and Amazon, and
at the very least, you can stream them. If you want to write to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you are watching us through Facebook Live, thank you for joining us tonight live. If you are watching this later on YouTube, thank you, and please like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion if you're listening to the audio version. Also, with the audio version, I'm hoping to get all episodes from this month out before Thanksgiving, so you have something to listen to on your drives or to phase out your in-laws. It's a mitzvah. I'm going to, despite being on my deathbed, I'm going to do my best to make sure those go out. So until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
Steve Morey.
And Caleb Alexander McKenzie again.
Which we all remain. You're going to hear a woof and an explosion if you're listening to the audio version. Sorry, folks. I'm in a haze. I will be back real soon. Oh.
Bye-bye.
Be good.
Bye-bye.
Brother.